Okay, great. Well, welcome everybody back for the summer break. Haven't seen, well, a couple of you online, but haven't seen everybody, so it's good to be back. I hope everybody had some good rest and relaxation because we've got lots coming at us. So I want to go ahead and call the meeting to order. And then I'll turn it over to Andrea, if you could do the roll call, please.
Yes, Chair Martinez-Beltran.
Here.
Vice Chair Meadows. Here. Director Scozola.
Here.
Tyson.
Here.
Walia.
Here.
Klein.
Here.
Thank you. All members are present.
Okay. And then I will go ahead and see if we have any public comment on anything that's not on the agenda.
No hands raised online, Chair.
Okay, so next we have the consent calendar, which is to approve the minutes. So can I get a motion on that? Unless there's any questions.
So moved. Second.
Public comment. I see none for this. And then because everybody is here, we can call the question.
Yep. Okay. So do we have to do, we don't have to do roll call then, right?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, that passes. Okay, so we will move right along to our regular calendar agenda. And we'll start with the CEO update. Monica.
All right, well, welcome to the first executive committee meeting post summer break. We have a lot on the agenda, so I will make the CEO report really short and brief. In fact, I'm going to hand it over to Pam. She's going to deliver everything on the CEO.
Okay.
Yeah, just some fun and updates for you, starting with upcoming events. Just we share the list of upcoming events or recent events that we've attended in your communities as part of the CEO report in the board packet. But just to put it on your radar, fall is like we like to call it Earth Month 2.0. Everyone's having a fall festival, and so we'll be out at art and wine festivals. You know, Mountain View is coming up, and the Los Gatos Fiesta de Arts. Campbell Oktoberfest is a great event. We will not have the Dream Home out in September. We're doing a bit of a contract transition there, but it'll be out in some of these for October, including a Frunker treat in Sunnyvale that we're very excited about. And also La Ofrenda in Gilroy. That's an event we continue to be a big partner, founding partner of that event. Move on to the next thing, which is I wanted to give you all an update. Actually, I think it was this month, last year, we proposed two new education initiatives. One was seeking board approval for a $100,000 grant for education nonprofit grants. So working with nonprofits that have existing education programs, reaching more climate education in schools, that's underway. So this is a pilot. We're waiting for the school year for them to run the programs and to evaluate, see how it goes. But we have really great four nonprofit organizations that were granted with a nice spread throughout the service area. The other pilot program that was proposed at the time was a community college partnership program because there was some interest from one or two specific people at West Valley College that had sort of proposed this idea. In the transition between that past fellow who had those conversations, and I think just folks are busy, things are happening, we've reached back out to the community colleges, so West Valley, Mission, Gavilan, to have these conversations about would they want to move forward with a more formal mentorship program, and the answer was no or no reply. So I think just existing, folks are busy, and however, they want to keep the door open and to just continue awareness of SVCE and maintain the relationship we've always had, which is very ad hoc. So if a group reaches out and says, hey, I have a science class, I have an energy club, whatever, would you have someone come talk to us? More informal, and we are okay with that. And if there is more desire to revisit and have us come back to the exec committee and talk more about how things are going in this area, we're happy to put that on the agenda at a future date.
Can I just ask, was it no or no reply from us? Gavilan.
From Gavilan? No, I'd have to get back to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just one quick comment. The junior colleges are just very difficult. It's such a transitory environment, and you just can't. In Rotary, we just have had no lasting success. So the ad hoc approach is probably the best way to go.
But we
Oh,
just
I
wanted
thought
to
you did.
remind you that we sent out an email yesterday, Andrea, that went out to the board, letting them know that we have, go ahead and finish.
Yes, thank you. Yes. So in your inboxes from Andrea is bill credit communications. I know there's a lot of interest. We, again, want to thank the board's interest in making sure that we really amplify this positive news to our customers. We think that it's worth sort of the expense and time that we've put into this, because for some customers, knowing what our awareness levels are, maybe it's the first time they read about us and it'll be really good news. So the email is just a copy of the postcard that's going out next week. It includes a copy of the press release that will be issued on Monday, so after the holiday. And we also, included a direct link to our Facebook, X, and Instagram accounts. So if you're active on social media, you can see the posts and you can share. We're going to do a post a week throughout September, letting folks know that it's a rolling basis on billing, right? That people receive their credit. Yeah, that's it.
That concludes my CEO report.
Oh, wow. What a great report, Monica. Thanks, Jeff. Okay, so we'll move to number 3, recommend the Silicon Valley Clean Energy Board of Directors distribute the 2022 member
Chair.
agency. Yes, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
Quick comment. Thank you for the report, all good stuff. The email and the timing, I think is fabulous. People, once they come back, thinking of fall after the Labor Day weekend. Because I know I get questions in social settings across SVCE territory beyond Saratoga, very frequently, about the bill concerns from people who can actually afford it. That's how the affordability has been an issue, because the bills are going up. So sending this out with the messaging on, in a multi-pronged communication approach, I think it's fabulous how you have timed it, worded it, all of that, and just kudos.
So Pam.
My team.
There you go.
Team. Thank you.
Okay, so now we'll move on to
So very
3.
quickly, we'll open public comment. And there is no public comment.
Okay, well, very good.
Got excited for a second.
I know, I was like,
That excited.
maybe Bruce isn't back with us yet, so. But, okay, thank you for that. So we'll go ahead and close public comment. Is there any last comments? Anyone? Okay, great. Then we'll go ahead and move on to number 3. Recommend Silicon Valley Clean Energy Board of Directors distribute 2022 member agency grant cycle remaining funds. So this looks pretty.
Great, okay, so this is mine, and so we wanted to bring this to you all to get your input on the matter, and then we'll bring it to the board next month with your recommendation.
Thank you, Sophie.
Perfect, thank you. So this is our recommended action that this executive committee recommend the board of directors reallocate about $500,000 in funds that was unspent in 2022 member agency grants to the 2025 competitive community grants, which would bring that fund to a total of about $4 million. We've got 2 options for you to consider and look forward to your questions and input. So just as background, I think folks remember, but we provide a variety of member agency grants to provide the kind of financial capacity to invest in building and transportation, electrification, energy savings, and community education. Oops.
Yay.
Okay, we've had a few grant cycles. In the 2022 grant cycle, which was the first time that we did the competitive decarbonization grants, there were 9 awardees through a competitive solicitation. One of those agencies decided not to move forward with their grant. Basically, what happened is that when they went out and got bids for the full project, they came in much higher than anticipated, and the city didn't have the matching funds or the staff capacity to fulfill the grant. So they tried multiple times, actually went out multiple bids, and then decided to return those funds.
Is that Los Altos?
No, Monte Sereno.
Okay.
Actually, yeah, so they were planning to do a demonstration center at that post office and convert it. But the bids escalated multiple times. And so it was no longer feasible and it was gonna require a lot of staff resources, and obviously they are very staff constrained.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Now the question is, what we want to come back and get your input on how to spend those funds. We have 2 options here. Happy to entertain others if there are, but, and like I said, we went back and forth too with these. The first was that we could distribute that $500,000 equally among our 13 member agencies for the non-competitive grants that you all have access to. And the second would be to put it into this new competitive solicitation that's about to go out. So this is option one, which is distributing it back to the member agencies. So I think you all are aware this was part of the solicitation. We divided up money and everybody has until the end of this year to apply or to reserve really their funding allocation. And so we could distribute it to be a little over $38,000 to each of the member agencies. One benefit of this is, you know, the funding was intended originally for member agencies for decarbonization. So it's right in line with what the board did. And it would allow member agencies to top off their projects. I guess the trade-off there is that we don't really think that this is enough money to kind of change or add to a new project. It would probably just give a little bit more funding for what you're already planning. So this is just a table that shows what that difference would be. So you can see that funding is around 140,000 up to close to 600,000 before this allocation, depending on the size of the jurisdiction. So option two would be to distribute that money to the community grants, which is, we're in the process of developing that, but the funding would go to schools, religious organizations, and nonprofits. It will be a competitive solicitation. The benefit here is that we see putting all of that in one bucket would likely give us enough funding for, say, a full additional project, which is why the staff is making that recommendation. I will just leave this up here and
Okay.
concludes my presentation.
Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate that. And you had said, I think I had asked if we could just understand, I think it was Los Altos with this last project, right?
It was Montessori.
Oh, it was Montessorino. Oh, I thought you said Los Altos. Okay,
I asked if it was, but.
No, I thought yesterday when you asked me, I wasn't sure.
that's why I was confused.
Yeah,
Okay.
there was a delay on that.
Got it. Okay. So, and I just wanted to make sure there was nothing that we had done, but you just clarified that, you
Okay.
know,
Yeah.
they just weren't able to do it because of the increase in costs. So, I guess also looking at this, I like the recommendation that you've said. I'm just wondering to ask a question on option one. Was there anybody that, you know, that expressed there was any kind, were there any projects when they came in where they were trying to get monies from other spaces that they might, you know, this might help them get over where we don't want to have another Montessorino?
Oh, yeah. We haven't heard that yet for
Okay.
for this portion of the grants, which are the non-competitive grants. We've had one jurisdiction reach out to reserve their funds so far. So the other 12 have until December. We know that some are already working through what they plan to do. But we haven't, so I don't have that information if this 38,000 would make something feasible that wasn't.
Okay, that's all that I wanted to know. Other questions?
You go ahead.
Oh, okay. So two things, on your slide detailing option two, you said would provide deeper investments to schools, religious orgs, and nonprofits. So I'm kind of surprised that religious organizations would be in this list. Can you explain that?
Oh, yeah. So they've, so churches, and this was really a piece of this was to say, how can we get electrification into community spaces where folks go? And in some of our earlier grants, we'd actually had churches and a synagogue reach out interested in electrifying their space. And so those organizations would be eligible to apply to install heat pumps. There would be a kind of an engagement component so that the community that attends that place would get to learn about electrification.
A little surprised at that. I don't, I mean, you know, it sounds open and fair and all, but it's just a little different than the cities usually.
Oh, and sorry, this is a
Operate.
different, so when the funding was given out, there was kind of two buckets. So we had the competitive funds
Right.
for cities, which has
No, I
already been
didn't, I
awarded.
didn't mean, I didn't
Okay.
mean how SVCE
Oh.
operates grants to the cities. I mean how the cities think about, yes. We don't tend to include, I don't know about other cities, but in Los Altos, we don't intend to include religious organizations as, I mean, they could fall into a civic organization or a nonprofit, but we just don't, it's just spelled out here and it struck me, so.
Yeah, when I was in Palo Alto, I mean, religious institutions are our customers, right? And so we always made any of our programs, rebates, anything available to any customer, including
Right.
religious institutions. And grants are a little bit different, but I think to Zoe's point, a lot of our customers go to these places and they're great places to demonstrate electrification and also help them reduce their bills as well. But I think we're in the process of developing the rules around. And so nothing, if there's a real concern, we can certainly take that into consideration as well.
I will say, just to comment on hers, and I'll come to you, Tina. I think we do need to look at that a little bit with public dollars, because these, we're a public organization going to religious institutions, and I definitely see that community members are there, and I think, yes, I think there could be some, but I think we need to be careful with that, very careful with that, so I would also say that. Tina?
Can I just say, I have a second question, but I feel like you're tagging onto this one, so
No,
go
no,
ahead.
mine is a separate question.
Oh, yours is a separate question. Okay, sorry. So my second thing is Los Altos had returned something, which was, I thought, also like a demonstration center. And then in one of the remodels of office space in the Civic Center campus, it didn't really make sense. But that was sort of a different bucket then?
That's right, that was from the resilience bucket,
Uh-huh.
and it was a smaller portion of funding, so we didn't include it in this piece. We're still waiting to, I'll say that funding closes out towards the end of the year. So before even talking about reallocating, we'll see if there's any other remaining funds that at a significant level. But it was for the other portion of the cool pavements.
Oh, the cool paper. No, I was thinking that there was some demo, it was gonna go in the Civic Center and had some like pedal power and it had.
Spoke to staff, they actually were still planning to move forward. There had been a delay, but then they said they were still planning to move forward with that one.
Okay, I didn't know. Well, that's better.
So-
I was eyeing George's decarb engagement grant purchase of the bench with the panels.
Last night, no,
Yeah.
thanks for on. I gotta say.
Okay, so that's fine. Sorry, go ahead, Tina.
All good questions. Thanks. So, my question was, Yuan just touched upon that initially. I'm thinking, why not option one? And I want to hear from everyone. My concern is that, and I'll ask you a couple of questions so you can give me one straight answer, comprehensive. So my concern is communities, well, going back to 22, when there was a matching required, I have consistently expressed that a city like mine will never, so we didn't even try what Montessorino tried, and they finally ended up with nothing. We were careful, and SVCE has heard, to make it equitable to all the 13 communities that this year we were like doing non-matching, which is going to help my city proceed forward. We did get the competitive without matching. With every city getting constrained with their infrastructure funding, and I know, I speak for my city, we are constantly getting bids that are higher than what we had planned for every single thing.
For everything, yes.
And my concern is, this is where I'm aligning with the remark made by Yuan earlier, that 38,000, it sounds like a nothing, but for some cities, it would ensure if we got the competitive, which we were fortunate for the first time to get something in Saratoga, it's a huge amount of money for us, $493,000. And the non-competitive that every jurisdiction is going to get this year, I want us to pause and actually think, does it make more sense to give that 38? Sounds nothing, but it may make the projects that each jurisdiction is planning feasible. With that, so help me understand that. And the other question I have is for the 2022, what date do you have to get the dollars to be used if we were to reallocate it, whichever way, option one or two? And for this year, the monies that we are giving out this year, competitive and non-competitive, what is the date to use the monies by? So two questions kind of tied.
So to the first question on absolutely a valid option, and I'll say we spoke back and forth on this, and there's sometimes when it's a very clear one and we were like, not quite sure which way to go, you can really see there's value in both of these. Again, we ended up leaning a little bit towards like, hey, you get a full school, like a real full project, and that brings a lot of community value, and so that's where we lean, but I think it's a very, both options are good options, and we think we would feel good about them either way. And then for your second portion, if this money was moved, so it would go out of the 2022 money into the 2024 money, so that 38,000. Cities would have, if it went into the cities bucket, member agencies, we'd have until the end of this year, December, to apply for those funds. That's when the funding application is due. If it goes into the community bucket, then we plan to, the applications for that will go out beginning of next year.
And has to be used by when?
We haven't set a being used by the cities or the communities.
Either way, so the applications need to be in.
The applications need to be in by this year, and then I believe that it's 2 years that cities have to use their funds.
Okay, thank you. That helps me understand. Appreciate that.
Thank you for that question, Tina. I really appreciate it.
Yes, and I was going to bring up some of the similar things. For me, I think all of our cities are dealing with a lot of uncertainties right now with tariffs and everything else. And whether or not cities have the flexibility to make funds. I would lean more towards option one, mainly because it's one thing to do competitive grants, absolutely. One of the issues with Montserrino here is they overestimated or underestimated how much the project was going to cost. And I worry about all the applications that are going in before December now for the city specific options, and whether or not conceivably, 6 months later, they've eaten a 10% or more overrun or out cost estimate when they get real bids for this. So, for me, I think, and I appreciate the answers to Tina's, because that's where I was going. It's good to hear that staff was basically either way. I appreciated an additional competitive project, but I do think that, especially why Montserrino couldn't move forward is exactly this, that it's very hard to do estimates right now. And one of the things I've asked my city manager is like, okay, our next quarterly budget update, try to get your arms around how tariffs are affecting us. So for me, this is a certain sort of thing that we're going to get bids, or you're going to get proposals from different cities that are good thumb in the wind, but 6 months later, when they're ready to actually do the work, that extra money might actually make a big difference. But
Great point.
okay, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry.
I see what you're saying. Because my leaning is the other way.
Another
And I just
project.
got back on Monday from a trip to Guatemala, where it's like so many of our successful projects, somebody has skin in the game, even if it's not that much. And so that's why I generally like the thought of somebody developing a proposal and applying, rather than having a grant. And so that's what kind of tells me to head that way. If we did do number two, I'm leaning toward what Director Meadows said, and I see that a religious institution is like a customer, but so are all of our commercial customers.
Or grocery stores.
So, or grocery stores, so maybe I wouldn't exclude them, but I would de-emphasize them at the
Yes.
scale, unless there's something.
It's a
really
flag
compelling
right
and
now,
visible.
especially.
So, and the cities have their budget issues and we have ours, and I'm putting on my big Silicon Valley clean energy. My town gets overrepresented in number one, because we're the smallest by far. And that feels a little unfair. That we get more than other people based on our.
No, Montserrino's.
Well,
They're 0%.
That's right.
They use flashlights.
All right, so those are my comments.
Thank you. Okay, and I wanted to come, did you want to comment? Okay. Just as you were saying that to George, you know, I'm thinking, when we talk about, just to clarify more with the real, I too agree that they are great, you know, community members, but our businesses, like we've had a lot of businesses close in our town, you know, and so they're struggling as well. And we're trying to figure out what's the key to us to be able to make it, you know, to the next step. So I think just making sure that we're looking at all of those groups and kind of making sure that they're all folded in is gonna be really important as well, so. That's
I guess
what
I
else.
should- there is a third alternative, by the way, that we just put the dollars back into the reserves. So that's the default. If we didn't do anything, the money would just flow back and help all of our customers in one way or another. Putting that out there. I guess we're fine with either option. We kind of went back and forth and we're like, well, let's put something out and see what we get here.
Okay.
I appreciate the discussion.
Well, this was great. We'll see if there's any public comment, then we'll come back, see if anybody wants to move forward with the motion. There,
There are no hands raised for this item.
okay, very good. So I'm looking back at my directors here to see yes. So, Tina, she was quick. She was quick.
There is a fourth option, which is to do a combo of 1 and 2. You know, so there's some, but that then gets the number smaller. So I'm not necessarily advocating it, but I think I have a hard time with option 2 just as a standalone, so but I'm open to. So therefore, and feel free to turn this down. I move that the executive committee recommend to the board option 1. I think that's where we sound like we're leaning.
Okay, thank you, Director. We have a second.
I'd second.
Thank you, Director Walia. So we have a motion to move forward option number 1. Can I go ahead and just ask for?
One second,
Oh, I'm
final
sorry.
comments.
Yeah.
One thing that we didn't bring up,
Yes.
which you talked about oversubscribing, is conceivably breaking that money based upon distribution size, because you know, it's like the total allocation is based, the rest of it is based upon that. You know, for me, it's like voting for this means, you know, some smaller cities get more money. For me, it's there's positive effects in either direction. I'm not saying I'm against the motion. I definitely think it's better to give it to the cities to try to do more. But there is that also, that option might, or let's say that question might come up when we get to the final word at the end of the day. We'll see where that goes. So that, as opposed to a flat fee per city, more distribution based upon size of the city. It's not the be all end all. You talk about, there's probably 15 different ways we can make these options, there's other stuff and all that, but.
But we
But I
won't
do-
do that today.
Right, but I do think it is positive that giving the cities more money to make differences within them. So I'm happy to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, then we'll move to a vote. So all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? All right, so that motion passes. And thank
Now,
you,
just to
Stan.
ask the board chair, would you like us to put on the regular or consent agenda?
What's your opinion?
I think.
Make it consent.
I think, yeah. Okay,
Unless Larry feels otherwise.
I'm fine with it.
okay, great. So now we will move on to number 4, to recommend the Silicon Valley Clean Energy Board of Directors approve the ad hoc committee's proposed operating rules and regulation amendments. And this is going to be our chair.
That's right.
Chair.
Thank you, everybody, for your attention. And also I want to express my appreciation for moving the meeting so that I could be here in person. And your gracious approval of that made it possible for me to be here, which I deeply appreciate. So let's go on to our first slide here. And you'll recall that we agreed, and you can see on the part of that in April, our executive committee, and then the May board meeting, we agreed that we would do a update, look to see what we could make better in terms of our operating rules and regulations. And we appointed a subcommittee which consisted of Vice Chair Klein and Director Showalter, chosen all with people with substantial governance experience for this purpose. And so the next slide then, what we agreed was that our proposed scope was we were going to review our current operating rules and regulations. And you have in your packet a red line version that was sent out to you Tuesday morning. And that we would research neighboring CCA bylaws, that we'd identify potential amendments. And then actually this fourth bullet point, that wasn't in my original slide. I added it later, just to be upfront, that we also said, the staff said, we've got some things we want to change. Let's do it at the same time. We said, sure. And then the other part that I did, should have anticipated and was very helpful was to make sure that anything that we, our subcommittee proposed, went through a legal review to make sure that it fit our bylaws and all of those things, so that we didn't have any kind of half-baked, oh man, I hesitated there.
Quarter-baked.
Half-baked solutions, okay. And then our plan is to present recommendations to the executive committee. And so let me go on to the next slide. And then sort of the context and like how did this happen? And I'll tell you, I'll just jump straight to it. Like, why did I choose to become vice chair and chair again? It's because of the change of our organization. Also, we hired a new CEO, and it was really important to me that we had some continuity in this organization and that we had a kind of a steady approach on that. And then even since that decision, you can see, how we're growing and how we're more complex. We have 62 employees now. But here's the thing, we have really strong financials. We can look at a $30 million loss and say, oh, well, these things happen. How many people can do that? How many people can do that? Business and regulatory pressures, we've had some closed sessions that would give us an indication of all that. And then just even in our August board meeting, I thought that was really just emblematic of the kind of complexity of the world that we have. And so the whole thing is, wow, we need continuity and we need skill. And that's in staff and that's with the board especially too. And so the other thing is our current governance is good. My impression is we have a really engaged and motivated board. I don't know how many people have told me this is their favorite assignment.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's true.
Because we actually get stuff done. I feel like we've got really good board experience. It's diverse, different skill sets and range of experience and backgrounds. I think that we're collegial and eager to learn, is my opinion. Okay. And now to speak for the committee, we want it to stay that way. Okay. And so the driving force is to make sure we have that continuity and experience as we go forward. And let's face it, this isn't for me. I'm going to be termed out of my city council seat at the end of next year. I benefit from none of this other than saying, what can I do to make this a legacy of improved process for the future for those next? That was what was behind me. So let's move on. And I feel very much of my subcommittee looking at things the same thing. So what we did was we went through, and with Andrea's help, we had documents from the other CCAs, roughly 8 or 9 in the general area, including San Jose, to say, how do they do things? And then what are some of the trends? We learned quite a bit from that. And then we went forward and did interviews, in some cases, extensive ones. I sat down for 2 hours with the PCE board chair to talk about what was working and not working and trends and all of these things. Really helpful. People, they're worried about their governance. And they were willing to help us. And PCE updated theirs just the end of last year too. And so the specific ones I focused on was 3CE, PCE, and then AVA, which is East Bay, which I had extensive contact with the CEO of that organization. Okay, and now this is a public meeting, so I'm gonna be really guarded.
You're going to be diplomatic.
You're gonna be diplomatic.
Which is my
Yes,
middle
thank
name.
you.
Your middle name, yes.
Holy smokes, have we done it good.
I like hearing that.
There's one had a 50% turnover aboard the year before,
Wow.
60 to 70% this year.
60 to 70%?
Yes, we have another one organization that has a total of
Now, was that?
38 board members.
Right.
Whoa. There's some of them in a rotating
Yeah.
position, some automatic, like counties and all that. You can guess who they are. Ask questions.
I was gonna say, was that elections or was that interest that?
We can't say. I mean, I don't know.
Right,
The turnover
It's a
happened.
mixture of
And a mixture of
appointees,
everything.
as we see in
Ava-
our board.
Yeah.
You know, people that thought they would get reelected didn't, or
Mm.
I would say it's more of that than choosing not to. But you know, there's things behind it. I mean, we had a city here where somebody was replaced. And so who knows?
George D. Tyson.
Here's the thing, some have a problem filling committee positions, others lack strong financials and or vibrant programs. And I feel like we've got all of those. Okay. And I will say, I'm gonna speak a little bit frankly, I feel like we've had some tense moments here where we had the opposite, we had more people wanting and we didn't know who was interested or have any way to systematically, other than the power of somebody's persuasive speech in person to decide who is it gonna be, and is that the way we should do it? So that was the thumb of the thought process. And we did see some good practices that we do not currently follow, okay? And we explored how to best adapt them to our organization. So the next slide will show you what some of the highlights of those things are. It's not meant to be comprehensive. I'm sure you read the detailed red line. So the staff went and they had some helpful additions. Thank you, Michael. I should have acknowledged you specifically on this earlier. Because you know, he always changes things. Is there something we can?
He's so picky.
So the staff initiated rewording the purpose, and there's some details in there that aren't necessary, like remote in Cupertino, like what for? And then added some further details on these committees, and then established what our rules of orders are. And so then the subcommittee, Larry and Pat and I met and then had extensive exchange over email over many weeks while all this was going on. And then I want you to look at the detailed things. And then here's just some of the high points. And if I left something out, then it wasn't on purpose. It was just what I thought was important. And so one of the things, and we saw this in at least 3 other CCAs, is that they have a nominating committee. And I've seen we do that here, like the VTA PAC has a nominating, right? Yeah, they do.
We do, I'll share some.
And
more.
then does the cities association?
Yep.
And so I feel like, wow, that's a good process. And so we puzzled about this and we thought, how do we do this? And so our proposal, and it's written here, is that the vice chair will nominate 3 directors. They'll receive proposals for chair, vice chair, and executive committee, and then come up with their own process or criteria. And we listed some in the document to say what is important. And then also, it doesn't say this, but the subcommittee can nominate themselves. We didn't say they couldn't. But also nominations are also permitted from the floor. So if there's ever any feeling that this nominations subcommittee went off the rails, the board has ultimate control. One of the things I saw was that we sometimes put people on the spot by the way we did our voting. And you know, a lot of places, that's why you have electronic voting, which we don't have. So we put in there, if there's ever a contested thing, then we'll randomize the order of the votes, just so that it just mixes things up. We listed, this is a little controversial, but we were all in agreement with this. We didn't want to say, oh, you have to do this, but kind of have some of the behaviors about dealing with staff and other things we thought were important. They weren't in response to any emergency. I just thought it was helpful to list those as a best practice. This is something that came up this last year, and I think everybody agreed that was one of the things that prompted this committee, was to put the board chair and vice chair on the executive committee. Okay. And then we have a new committee removal process based on lack of attendance. Because we think that in committees, if you're going to be on them, that you should be there. And then we also said, we never had this before, a minimum experience on the board for the chair, 2 years. I don't think those are onerous, because there's so much to learn.
Oh, yes.
When you're here.
Yeah.
So I think that's a fair thing. And then something else that we had in our early draft, and our lawyer reminded us that our JPA said we couldn't have term limits. So it was a big thing at PCE. They had a big debate about whether to have a 3 or 2 year limit on board chairs. Often their board chairs serve for 2 years. And we just decided we're not gonna say, oh, let's change the JPA for that.
Yeah.
So that was the thing that we did with that. I Okay, so the last slide is to
No.
say, this is what we got in front of us and recommend approving this to the board. I want to say to Larry and Pat, we had a really good discussion. Their experience shone through, and also they, like all of us, are looking out for what we think is best for the organization. Those are the next steps would be to go through this process that you see there. So at that point, I'm ready to open it up for questions.
Okay, thank you. That was a great report now. So, do we have any questions? I have some. Anyone? Yes?
Yeah, so it was very interesting hearing about the other CCAs and their massive turnover problems and things. And these CCAs are using a nominating committee?
Yes.
Okay, so my fear is, well, I have a question here, but could it be that the nominating committee itself ends up politicizing, you know, the larger body where we, admittedly, we're doing great. I know we've had a couple awkward votes, those were split votes. I have a simple suggestion, I don't know if I should say it now, I'll wait till comments, I guess, but that's my fear is that we could end up becoming like them moons later, however moons later. I love the feeling right now, the spirit, I agree with everything said about how we're in a really healthy position, and I agree, the ad hoc committee, I agree with the vast majority of recommendations, but the one fear I have is that, especially after hearing about that, they have nominating committees and they have this massive turnover. I'm just wondering
You know
if,
what their biggest issue is? Their biggest issue is they can't fill up their executive committee. It's the opposite of
Really?
us. Oh, yeah.
like disinterest, like,
Oh, yes.
Wow.
Like, it's not disinterest, it's people are busy. They say, "Oh, I like it, but that's the thing. So when it's not that, and so frankly, the whole purpose is to make sure that we have, because right now, if we have too many of it, how do we have enough of the right experience? So that the board can choose.
any other comments, Larry, or I was curious for your perspective as well.
So I definitely, and this is, I want to thank George or the chair for spending all the time talking, because we went through some of the documents, but he spent immense time talking about, with other
I
organizations.
really missed the CTA conference too. And I chatted with individual board members too, just to check in with them too. And I talked to the chair of the San Jose, very different
Oh, yeah.
organization, just
San
to get
Jose,
some
she's
perspective
great.
there too. So really, gosh, going to the CCA conference was perfect that we knew we were doing this before that happened.
Amazing.
And as far as like the executive committee for like cities association,
Sure.
we try to like cycle people through.
Mhm.
And so it's always like one new person almost every year, what it really comes
Right,
down
yeah,
to it.
yeah.
Which I'm hoping just to, it's like, you want to be very select in
Sure.
who you bring onto the board or to the executive board especially. And so yeah, I think that's a big thing. It's whether or not it's political, it's also, you don't want somebody who doesn't even understand the organization. Like, I want to be on the executive board, I want to make a big change. And it's like, that might not be in the board's best interest. And so
Right.
exactly what we talk about, the educational or kind of the onboarding is a year, 2 years, really, until you really understand what's
Oh,
going
yeah,
on.
for
So that's the only
If you ever do.
If you ever do. Yeah,
That's without debate,
It's
yeah.
always changing, from that standpoint, the landscape is changing so much that, yeah.
Yeah, and I
it is.
definitely love the 2 years. That is like bare minimum needed, I swear,
Yeah,
right,
to
for sure.
learn, get your legs underneath this massive amount of information.
From a cities association, we don't have like a requirement from that standpoint.
Sure.
But we kind of have, because it's from cities, president, first, second vice presidents, and then, treasurer. And so there's a kind of a general progression,
Right.
which does make it that, okay, you're not normally going to be, dropped in the middle. Sometimes it does happen, but you're not, it's still normally years with the organization before you end up in a position of.
I definitely acknowledge absolutely 100% that the experience does matter, and to get new blood in there also matters.
Mhm.
So I agree wholeheartedly with those
Yeah.
comments. I appreciate that. And I might have more questions later, but I'll leave it at that for now. Thanks, guys.
Will you go back to the slides, like 2 slides back? I love seeing you though, Michael, but blown up. One more to where all of the recommendations are.
That's the next slide 6 or 7. I mean.
Perfect, there you go. So I think I similarly have, I genuinely, this is one of my favorite boards. I think it's very collegial. I think that we have a really good way that ideas, whether they're a majority, minority, I think that usually it's the best idea that comes to the top, and that's what I appreciate about this board. And so I do worry, I also looked at our process at the VTA, so the VTA chair, and they have a nominating committee, but they do not recommend, the nominating committee does not recommend someone. It's really just collecting. They do what Andrea does. They collect who's interested, and gives people a bit of a chance to, you know, maybe get involved. We also have in the past dissuaded people, if you are on the nominating committee, that you are not running for an office because there's a conflict of interest there. And so that is something that we'll probably be codifying because we've had a couple of, you know, instances where it just hasn't, it seems like we've had people talking about that there's conflict of interest with that. So I too, you know, I guess my question, I think so much of this is great. I think in particular, the nominating committee is something that I do have a question about. I think there was a part of the issue is there was, you know, there's been 2 votes where there was this timing. It was uncomfortable, I think, for everybody, and looking for a solution. The committee was trying to find a solution, and I get that. But I almost feel like this isn't really a solution to it. I just feel like it's kind of, I do agree, it is politicizing a board that works so well. And I just, you know, I worry that that's where we're going. Now, I think some of these other things are great caveats, like the 2-year experience to be board chair, because we all know you cannot just get on this board and be in one of those leadership roles. It doesn't work. There's no way. Even the 1 year I think that those are all really great additions to have. You know, if you're on committee that you have to, I mean, this is something where you have to be there and you have to be involved. And I do really also appreciate about our board, the building of leadership. And I do see that happen here. For example, just here, you know, we have our chair, we have our vice chair, and I have the opportunity to chair the executive committee. And to me, that provides more breadth where, I mean, you're both, you know, as chair and vice chair, they're constantly working with staff, they're working with our CEO and leadership. And it's been really great to, I mean, I've served on this for years, but I've certainly had more experience, more face time, and more understanding has grown just being in this small, you know, little role here, because there's so many questions that come up. So I want us to, I guess I would think, you know, maybe we could look at that. I'm not sure that the nominating committee for me is the solution. I would be interested to see what the board thinks about it. Again, I love this group and this mission that we have here, and it's a very different type of organization that we all work in, because we're really getting a lot of work done here. So those are some of the questions that are floating in my mind. And yes, I would love to hear from you.
Sure. A question. So you mentioned VTA, and that's the one organization I've almost stayed away from.
Larry.
Yeah.
Remember the D.
So you're saying their nominating committee doesn't make recommendations, but also can't be running for a position. What does the nominating committee do then?
They basically, at some point there, when they had started, there was this where they had to, you know, basically recruit people to run for the positions at that time. And so that's what this was to go out and say, hey, this is what the commitment would be. And, you know, you might want to be interested in doing this. Maybe you want to do vice chair if you don't want to do chair. That's really what the nominating committee is, how it initiated and how it started.
Okay.
They, like I said,
but they can't be running for any of those positions or on those
Actually, they
positions?
can't.
They can,
Oh, I
but
thought you said they couldn't.
they can, but it has created issues. And so that's why we're looking at,
Oh, I see.
we've said,
Now,
yeah,
okay,
right,
okay,
yes.
okay. So I was confused from that standpoint, like, well, what are they doing? Okay, now I have a better understanding. I've
So
stayed, I've stayed out of the BTA.
it's created some conflict of issues. People are on the nominating committee and seeing who's coming in and who's interested, and then they're also wanting to run, and so there's been
Okay.
lots of conversation.
And I did want to bring up the other thing about the randomized voice vote. That's
Please.
one of the
That's
things
very
that our city does, that every vote is random.
Oh.
If we're all in the room, then we can do it from the dais. But there's enough occurrences where someone's having to be remote or all that, that the city clerk is always ready to do randomized voice votes. And certain things we actually need to do that for, so, but pretty much he has long lists of random names of the people attending just to
Wow.
deal with those sorts of issues. But, as opposed to, Sunnyvale's almost always last or is last, I think, in the majority of our votes. So I do think.
Is it effective? Does it work?
Oh, yeah,
really? Oh,
and
great. I'm glad to hear
it's
that.
just, and it also forces people to be, I'll say,
Thinking on their toes.
more engaged,
Aha.
that, oh, what my
I see
name might be called next, as
Sure,
opposed
sure.
to, okay.
Oh, okay.
I'm either not paying
Yeah, that
attention, they
makes
go,
sense.
like,
Yeah,
as the
I like-
last person, it's like, okay, has everybody gone through their?
It's like the
okay.
teacher in the classroom, right, where you don't know, are you gonna be?
Right,
called?
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
There's-
I completely
there's that
understand
sort
it
of thing
now.
too,
Thank you
but
for
I
that.
That's a general process thing that I think is good for the board, but
And
I'll
we'll
leave
be
it at
able
that.
to do that.
Oh, yeah, we can do that. if you want to. Yeah.
Just more work, sorry.
I have one other thing, but I will, it's
Are we
not
still
related
on
to that.
questions?
Yes,
Discussion.
so, did you have a question?
No, I thought you were asking questions.
No, I,
You're done? I have two clarifying questions. One is for Michael. Michael, I hear you about taking the location out. As we can clearly see, we have changed location. Why take the time out? Because that has been planned and has worked since the SVCE organization started. It works with the schedule of the different councils. And trust me, you try to move one meeting, I've been working with Larry for the Cities Association for October. And you are going to run into challenges with basically saying City X is unable to participate and we don't care. So my suggestion is when the assignments are made, if we stick to this, that's my only, so question is, why did you remove the time?
Great question. I think the goal for moving the time was just to make it easier for the board to change things as the board desires. So the board can set the meeting time and place in these operating rules, but they can also set them by resolution, which the board did at the last meeting. And so it is established the meeting location and the time by that resolution. And a resolution can be adopted at a single board meeting, whereas a change to these operating rules require 2 readings. And so if we wanted to make changes to the time, not that we are planning to, but if we wanted to make changes to the time, the board would be able to accomplish that with 1 meeting by removing it from the operating rules and keeping it in a resolution sort of a format. So that's the purpose for removing them here, as opposed to sort of, wanting to change it from meeting to meeting.
Right, and the current practice is, we bring an item, is it the January board meeting?
December or January,
December,
we set
where
the
we
schedule.
list the whole schedule for the year, so it'll be 7 PM in whatever location we end up having.
I'll express my concerns right now about, I just want the time, that's it, because every city, we go through this every year. You get new council members elected to different cities, they may be on the board, they may not realize, some city does announcements early December, late December, early Jan, late Jan. And we have talked about this, so I just feel strongly about the 7 PM time on the
What if
second Wednesday.
November 11th is a Wednesday that year?
It is
I
next
hear
year.
you, then you make the
Oh.
exception.
Yes, okay.
Then you make the exception. The point is removing this from the timing as a fixed second Wednesday. We can't solve that issue in my city with assignments. It comes up, there's a new city manager who's trying to, hey guys, you forgot to even check. There's human error that creeps in. You forgot to check, you have sent me on assignments. Forget the fact that I may have planned travel, which is not my personal example. I rarely travel, as you all know. Could be someone else. these things creep in inadvertently, mistakes happen. And anyway, that's one thing. The other question is, it puzzles me. We've had which is going to be Article 1 now, Section 2, appointment of secretary and treasurer. We've had this, it seems, since, well, at least prior, it's not being introduced now. I'm curious who's our secretary treasurer and what is the role of that person? Is that still CFO or that's coming from board of directors?
Yes, I am currently the secretary and I keep the minutes and records of the organization, and Amrit serves as our treasurer.
That's what I thought, but what puzzles me when I look at this document, it's falling under board of directors. I mean, I thought that's exactly what it was. You're the board secretary, and I'm just bringing it up. I am totally fine with it, just flagging it for, is that technically
I
correct?
think the way that it reads here, these are the roles of the board of directors under Article 1, and that includes to appoint the secretary and treasurer once every year. And so that's an action that you have to do every year.
So you have the power of appointment. It's not that the board members themselves serve in those roles.
Okay, as long as that's clear, that's all, I'm just bringing it up, nothing else. I can sometimes overread stuff,
We
Michael.
can reword it to say explicitly that the board shall appoint the secretary and the treasurer.
Whatever works, I'll leave it to Michael to figure that out. I'm just raising it.
Appreciate the questions.
Thank you.
Okay. Did you have something, Chair, or no? Was I seeing? Okay, great. The only other question that I have, it was on the number 4. I think it's number 4, yes, number 4, removal of officers. And this is very fresh and open rooms for me. So I'm just realizing from my own experience that I'm worried this could create some, I guess the lack of clarity could create some issue for us in the future, that should somebody want to do something just on their own political reasoning. So here it says at any time for any reason by majority vote of the entire board.
Can you tell us where that section is that you're reading?
Section 4.
Page 2.
Oh, section
Yeah.
4, okay.
Sorry, page,
All right.
yes, page 2, section 4, removal of officers. An officer of the board shall be subject to removal as an officer of the board or committee thereof at any time for any reason by majority vote of the entire board committee respectively. I think at any time, it could happen anytime, so that's great. I think for any reason is where it gets a little, it's just so vague. There should be, for violation of a policy, we should establish there's something, reason why somebody is removed, not just any reason, where I think that, well, I know that creates a little bit of risk and gray area that, we could, I don't know that, I think I'd be more comfortable if we put something in there.
What is that, AT&T? Those are the reasons.
No, so she's saying
No.
section 4 is separate from section
Oh, I
5.
see.
Right, so it's just
Or
not
it's the-
somebody's,
It's the officer versus a board member. So the
Chair or vice chair, or the treasurer or secretary.
Well, all I'm
Or the
saying is the
executive
reason,
committee.
there should be some reason, right? Right, so violation of a policy would probably be fine, and I have talked with Michael, and I'd be happy to let him decide what could maybe just clarify that there's some reason, and I forgot what some of the words were yesterday, Michael, so.
Okay, and this is not really new language,
No, it would just be adding
it's
in.
already there.
Right, adding, correct, so it's just to clarify from the experience and understanding, that could be, it would be great to have some kind of it's not just any fly-by-night reason.
I would comment on that for any reason now, obviously it's super vague, I agree. But this might be a case where super vague is actually good for us. And what I mean by it is, who knows, a board member I had a sack of puppies and I threw in the river or whatever, and it's like, oh my God, that's a very crazy reason. But my point is, you don't know what a board member may do, and we might write a policy like, well, killing a bunch of puppies isn't technically a violation, and we have to work with this person still. Sorry for the horrible example. But my whole point is that I kind of like that it's vague because I feel that our board is wise, and if someone did anything that we feel you should not be on the board anymore and it's a majority vote and that's the case, I say it makes sense to me actually just to be, allow for more freedom of the board when if any kind of horrible thing comes up where we're gonna wonder, should this person be removed? I personally think the vagueness is good on this particular thing, just my personal opinion.
I just think this will go back to you have something to fall on rather than, now things are great, but you
Yes.
just you don't know where you go, so. Yes.
And I'll follow up. There was an LA council member that it said some very bad things in texts.
Oh,
And
yes.
residents were coming every council meeting to basically ask for, and I could see this organization become politicized. Text, so the problem is trying to create a list. It's like, oh, it's standard what's the standard practice of being a board member? Yeah, it's like, well, what you say in your personal text, conceivably if it becomes public, becomes a organizational issue that wouldn't be listed as like, well, you can't say, we'll say derogatory things on text about a member of the public, blah, blah, blah. But that could easily become a reason to say, yeah, you can't be chair anymore because every time you're chair, it's like we have 20, 30 people show up to say,
Right.
you need to step down. Why is this organization allowing you to be chair? And so I'll agree with the vagueness and maybe we can conceivably have this discussion at the board. Hopefully this doesn't go that long, but that's the problem. It's like, well, it's easy to put, it's like, oh, a felony, this or that.
Right, well,
But there's
I
enough,
think
and
it
that's-
should
that's-
still, yes, I think it should still be vague, but point to the policies rather than, like I said, you don't always have, your board changes, right? And so you want to make sure that it's not for personal reasons or something. So that it's something that's related to the organization. That's my only concern.
May I jump in, please?
Yes.
Maybe Michael can help us with that. I don't have any strong opinions both
Sure.
ways. I agree with all that I'm hearing. So Michael, two great points made for scenarios by Elliot and Mayor Larry. The section 5D, sorry, I've had my coffee, but it's over an hour now. So 5D, it says for removal, failure to comply with SVCE's code of ethics policy. Would that cover those kind of scenarios? I'm just trying to see if there's a middle ground to solve that issue. Would that cover all those crazy scenarios?
It may not cover everything that, for example, the example that Director Klein shared about, text messages. And I think, having a reason, could be helpful in terms of being clear to the individual being removed about the purpose. But it could also potentially expose us as well. If the reason was related to speech, it could indicate or sort of open up a challenge on free speech grounds. So I think if there was a reason here or not is really, it's at your discretion. There's not sort of a requirement either way. And, having it or not wouldn't necessarily protect us from lawsuits. Folks could bring lawsuits, whether it was in there or not. So it's really, I think it's just sort of a policy decision that you could make in either direction. We've seen, removal for any reason, I think sort of for the reasons discussed here, in other agencies' bylaws, so that you don't sort of have to say it and even saying it, particularly if it was related to a protected class or any inappropriate reasons for removing folks would create liability and would be problematic. So I think, having sort of a flexible reason helps cover that for some agencies, but it's absolutely within your discretion to go either way on this.
Thank you. That's very helpful. That's why I am so thrilled, Monica, make sure we have Michael here with us.
Okay.
Just to add
is there
that
any-
this language has existed since day one, and to my knowledge, it's never been exercised in any way. I would imagine that if it were to be exercised at any point, it would kind of have to be a serious reason for someone to not
I
to,
trust the board.
yeah. So if it means anything, I'm fine with it being vague as well.
Yeah, okay, well, I bring it up because we're changing, things, and like I said, it's something that I know that we're gonna be
Can I
challenged with,
ask
so.
one question? So, we had an example where our, council nominated and assigned a person to, you know what I'm
Agency.
talking about, an agency. And, someone who wasn't nominated to an agency maneuvered such that she was
Oh, wow.
actually voted, they were actually voted and appointed to a board. So
Instead of your.
instead of who the council
Wow.
nominated, it's a long story, and I
Yeah.
too can use D as my middle initial.
You're gonna have to work a little harder.
Yeah. Well, just because you lived the circumstance.
I know the story.
Yes, you know that you participated. Anyway, so there's nothing, and maybe we don't need it, because that's kind of an unusual circumstance, but there's nothing in here, I think, my reading that says the director or alternate must be assigned by the council or, the city itself. Because that was just a really disruptive end around.
What we did in our,
Yeah,
in our discussion was, we heard feedback from board members, and a board member from a city not called Los Altos said, what can we do about behavior that's just beyond the norm and really destructive to the whole culture?
Yes.
And we puzzled over it. We even had a draft in there, and we decided we didn't think we could really write that right.
It's hard to
And
write.
so we backed away from it. But it doesn't mean we didn't hear that person's concerns about a really rogue person,
yeah.
but we couldn't figure out, so you didn't put it in there.
Okay,
Right.
well,
Well, that could, but rogue behavior can encompass a lot of things.
I know.
But this is a very specific thing where, and a city makes the nominations, right? Of director and appoints, the mayor appoints, and that didn't happen in this one case. Again, it's unusual, but it's not here. Just, I'm okay
yeah,
to live without it, just saying it can happen.
wow. Okay, so now we will go, if there's no more questions, we will move to public comment.
There are no hands raised at this item.
Okay, great. So we'll come back, have some closing comments. And then if there are any closing comments, and then we can move those. So, Director Sisler.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to bring up the idea that, well, our awkwardness that I've experienced the last two votes was that we had split votes both times. And it was incredibly awkward. So we don't want to do this anymore, right? No more split votes. So I thought long and hard about it, and I was like, I don't know if we can make it mandatory, but we need to really, really emphasize, you need to be there in January. If you're not there, your alternate needs to be there. 13 people
Yes.
need to be there for the vote. We have to ensure that that happens. And if we do that, then we could, there's no need for nominating committee or any of that stuff. To wrap up my comments, I fully support everything else, removal of the members, rules, the best practices policy, minimum experience requirements, the randomized voting, and of course, chair and vice chair automatically on executive committee. I think all those are incredible, welcome additions. I'm only commenting again, I think we can avoid a lot of red tape and possible politicization, hard word, politicization by not going with the nominating committee actually, and just ensuring, absolutely doing whatever we need to do. Maybe even put some language in there about, I'm just throwing things out there, but if you do not show up on the crucial vote, or you don't have your alternate, it's like your responsibility. It's like, if you can't be there, even if you get sick or whatever, you need to prepare your alternate to be there. Like, hey, just in case my car breaks down, you need to be ready. As my alternate to go there, because it's the crucial vote. We can't miss this. And I don't know how to ensure that we do that. I don't think mandatory is necessary. I just think that we really need to impinge in our culture here that is a meeting you do not miss. And then we don't have split votes. That's my suggestion.
Anyone else?
I'd like to ask Michael, Michael, bring up the example of Cities Association. They have changed location, I think their client can, yeah, it's 2 hours since I had the coffee, so. But Cities Association changes location, but their time has been fixed. As a former mayor, I can tell you what happens in City Hall when the mayor is trying to figure out assignments, there may be new council members, et cetera, et cetera. We've got like 10 to 15 assignments. For the city staff to know this is the day and time for that assignment is extremely helpful. I'm being sticky on that for a good reason. What is the harm in keeping, not putting it, in retaining the day and time? And it says regular meeting. To your concern, George, that's a regular meeting. Let me finish, please. If there is an issue of changing the regular meeting, it will be a special meeting. And the last board meeting for SVCE we had earlier this month, it started at 6, which is fine. Because then that's introducing the closed session. We know what to expect. I just feel very strongly about maintaining the day and the time. There is a domino effect all over the culture that has worked. And why create a problem where none exists? I will go back to the comment that the others have made for other things.
And I would say, it doesn't have to be a problem. And all we have to do is agree on our calendar in December. And then when the appointments are made for assignments, then the schedule is set. And putting stuff in the ORR is a clumsy way to do stuff. I agree that it institutionalizes it, but I don't think the way we do it is broken. Then it becomes fixed, and it's for that year.
There'll be cities that will not decide the assignments till end of January. That's precisely what I'm saying.
That's why you do it in December.
So you do it in December, not knowing.
We set ours in December.
No, but some cities have already decided by that time who the assignments are. From early December through end of January.
In December.
We did, our assignments are made in December.
So George, this is my point.
So
You
then
have.
November.
I am not going to support that. I'm very clear about it. To me, second Wednesday, 7 p.m., nothing is broken. I would like to retain that. I'm good with everything else.
I think it's fine on staff. I mean, it's up to the committee, the operating ad hoc committee to accept it.
I have a question. When does it happen in December? Because we're the second Wednesday, right? So it's early December. When is it? When is our meeting the
It's always the
second?
second.
So it's the second Wednesday.
And that's when we adopt the,
And when do you guys do yours?
Second Tuesday usually.
Ours has varied from the first week of December through the third.
Our city's the same, yeah.
Wait, January, yeah.
That's why I'm saying I'm basing this on my understanding of the 13 cities. That's why, I mean, it's a little thing. I feel very strongly for a good reason. I'm not asking for a change. I'm saying let's retain what is.
yeah, we would not suggest changing it from 7, I mean, look, we're sticking with 7 p.m. on the second Wednesday. And that's what would be adopted in the resolution in December.
Okay.
If we were to, I know that this board had a discussion during COVID about changing the meeting time. And it was a very contentious discussion and we went nowhere. So we're not even, that's not our plan. I think it was just to chair, the chair's point is to we take it out of the operating rules so that we don't have to have it solidified there. But either way, we're fine. I think that it's not.
So we could set it for the year.
Elsewhere is the
So,
point.
yeah,
It's still the same thing. It's
It'll always
just,
be 7 p.m.
I'm fine with
second
it.
Wednesday of the month with a location, I guess TBD.
And we could we do it earlier, or is there some issue with doing it in
Call it a special-
November?
Call a special meeting. Oh,
Yeah.
talking about the calendar.
The calendar, approving the calendar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand. The calendar, from what you're saying, is where we go and we approve for the year. These are all the meetings we're
And
gonna
I'm
meet.
also saying that there's no way that staff would just simply in that December meeting, change it to 5 p.m. Or change the date, because that would not, we know that would not fly. This board is very particular. And we should be about when we meet because of all the other commitments that the board members have. So it's not like we're using this as a mechanism to change the time or the date. We're not doing that at all.
Right.
It'll always be the second Wednesday, 7 p.m.
Okay, and so again, we're doing it because we want it to just not be codified in there, right?
This came from Michael.
Right, so,
It's like,
Yeah,
it's-
yeah, I didn't make this change.
so Michael, what?
Yeah.
One
Yeah,
more
so-
time, sorry, just.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Absolutely.
absolutely. Yeah, and I think to Monica's point, we can keep it in the operating rules. We can keep it in the resolution. Either way works from a staff perspective. The purpose of taking it out of the operating rules is so that we don't have to have 2 board meetings if we did want to change it. And so the board would have to vote to change this. Right now, it is set as the second Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. in the resolution that was adopted last month. So the board would have to adopt a new resolution to change that. And so that would be sort of, Chair Walia, to your point, that's sort of how it is set today. Why we may want to have more flexibility than the operating rules. One reason, is that, for example, issuing bonds can only be done at a regular meeting. And so if we needed to reschedule a meeting and we wanted to try to get our timing for the prepayment, because the market isn't always right and ready to go, and we really want to try to thread the needle on timing, that's sort of an outlier example where it might be helpful to have the flexibility of not needing to go to 2 board meetings to adjust it, while being able to keep it as a regular meeting where we could issue bonds. But there's not a lot of other instances where it would be necessary to change it. And I think, looking back, we haven't really changed it. And so my sense is it's likely to stay as is unless, the board for some reason decides that it would like to change it. And so I think the difference, again, just in being the operating rules or being where it is now in the resolution, is just 2 board meetings versus 1 board meeting. So a little more flexibility in a resolution.
So let me ask you, Michael, so for that scenario that you gave about the bonds, if the timing from second Wednesday, 7 p.m. is off, how would you deal with that and still call it a regular board meeting? You want to meet on the first Wednesday at 7 p.m. How would you call it a regular meeting? Because you've already scheduled the calendar 10 months ahead of time. How would you call it?
Yeah, it would depend on sort of where we were in the calendar and specifically sort of the days. But if the board could adopt another resolution that reset the calendar, that would sort of reset the regular meeting, and then that resolution would control. And so it would be up to the board, again, to adopt a resolution to make any of those changes, and that would override the previous schedule.
How many times has that happened?
I think, as far as I know, and Andrea maybe has a better sense, but I think we set it originally in these operating rules and then just updated it in our last meeting. So I think it's just happened once, is my sense.
None or once?
The question was, how many times have we moved it?
I can't even remember moving a regular meeting.
Okay, did you have that challenge ever?
No, I think there was a concern that we had a special meeting that started early last month. And that was the same meeting that we were adopting the resolution to approve the prepay, which for the CCCFA rules has to be done at a regular meeting. But the timing worked out that we went into the regular meeting, and so it was adopted in a regular meeting. So there was a little bit of concern there, but it's not something, again, it's just whether we have to do two board meetings or 1 in order to make a change is the only flexibility that we were asking for. Not likely to change the date or the time. The location, as you know, we did have to change, and so we did have to do a resolution on that. So I don't think this is a make or break deal for us, for staff at all. So it's, if you want to make I don't know, I'm not going to call the motion, but we do have a few other things on the agenda. So.
Okay, so I hear you. I feel very strongly about the other piece just because I see exposure and I just want to, but I'm fine to let that go. I trust, what's going here and this super smart little one over here. So I think I'm fine to move forward with that. I do think I'll second as far as I'd like to move this, but I too am not really sold on the nominating committee. I think we might be creating more than what we were trying to do. That's just, that's just how I see it. So I will move that we move forward with everything without that change. And happy to talk about that, without the nominating committee. On number
Okay, so
4.
you're,
So
okay.
I'm moving to move this recommendation of the SVCE Board of Directors approve ad hoc committee's proposed operating rules and regulation amendments without that piece. And then, however you all wanna move forward with that, we can have some more discussion on that if you like.
That is a big piece, so I would encourage other comments, discussion, or anything regarding specifically the nominating committee. And I would like to ask about the 13, maybe, Michael, can you tell us, like, it doesn't seem like we can make it mandatory, am I assuming correctly that January meeting, it's like we need to have the 13, but is there anything that can be done to ensure, because this could be the solution, right, the simple solution is.
There's never a solution. There's never
We
a.
cannot force somebody to
No.
not
Right.
abstain. They can show up
Oh,
and not
you're
abstain.
right, I had
So I
considered
don't think
that.
that's gonna do it.
No.
I had not considered that.
And
So,
we trust her, they're gonna show up if there's a meeting and they gotta get there.
So-
We missed a meeting.
so I'm not
Well.
supporting the motion.
Okay.
What I will support is to move forward the judging by the amount of conversation here, this should be discussed at the board. And I
Absolutely.
will only
Absolutely.
support moving the the ad hoc committee's recommendations forward to the board for discussion. That's my, you, I think, didn't get a second, and so that is my motion.
I'll second that.
I think that's great. So we can all talk about it and I think that's great. Comments?
No, it's fine.
Did you second?
That's what
I had not, because I was hoping to encourage more discussion, but
Okay.
it's a
If
motion
you
on
want
the
to
floor.
second it, then I'll
Yeah.
make a substitute motion that
Oh,
we adopt
I would love to hear that, yeah.
No, the motion, what I'm trying to figure out is if we have a first and a second on our chair's motion.
She's saying she wanted to make
I'll
a substitute
second, I'll,
motion.
if
Okay, and
it
then-
pull out, I'll second the
All right.
chair's motion.
Okay,
You're seconding the chair's
Yes, I-
motion.
I
Okay,
do,
so my
yeah.
substitute motion is that we, and which would take priority to vote on first anyway, is that we move forward the recommendations of the ad hoc committee to the board for discussion.
And I'll
yes,
second-
so,
and I'll
So
second
so
that.
this is what we
Just
vote
to
on
have-
first,
Just to
yes.
have
The
this
discussion.
discussion at the board.
great.
All about discussion, so I actually would
Yes.
agree to that, yes.
And so now, is there any discussion on the substitute motion? Because the substitute motion is what we would vote on first. Is there any discussion, questions on that? Anyone?
We're just essentially gonna bring what's proposed to
No,
the board.
there's two motions on the floor. The
Right.
first motion was that I was saying, I'm a little uncomfortable with the nominating committee, didn't want to move forward with that. You have seconded that, so we have that motion. We have a substitute motion by Director Meadows, who's saying that she sees that there's some importance in having that conversation and would like for that to go to a discussion at the board. We have a second by Mayor Larry.
That's what all the residents call me.
Why not?
Go with it.
Now that is what we have, and we will be voting first on the substitute motion. If that passes, then we're done. If it doesn't, then we'll come
That
back
makes
to
sense.
this. So,
I would suggest a roll call vote since it's a
Yes.
little bit of a,
so I'm just
Non-standard.
clarifying, is there any more discussion I would like to clarify? Yes.
Just a quick comment to
Sure.
Michael. Michael, I disagree with you on this, but I'll support you because I respect you too much.
Yes, okay, great. And so I think that we're all deciding that this is something that sounds like people would like this to. Well, because we have two motions, and so it
but we have
sounds,
one to vote on first, which is the substitute.
I understand, if I could just finish my comments. It sounded to me like I thought that people were interested in having that conversation, and I didn't see people jumping up to support the substitute motion. So I was just gonna offer to withdraw the substitute motion so that we
You
could,
can't withdraw my motion.
I'm sorry,
This is
not this,
substitute.
not your
Oh,
substitute,
oh,
my motion.
The original.
Oh, Lord.
Confused, okay.
So That's what I was.
Either way, we still have to vote then
Yeah.
on my motion.
Yes, we do. So
But if you, maybe
we'll
it's
go
not
ahead and
labeled
call the
as-
vote on that. That's fine. So all those in favor?
Did you want to do a roll call?
Yes, for a roll call.
Oh, we have to do roll call. Okay.
I'm gonna try to randomize.
Yes.
Oh, you don't have to actually.
Yeah.
No, I love that.
But you
But you
can.
can. She doesn't have to, but you can.
I will start with Director Tyson.
Yes.
Awalia,
Yes.
Klein,
Yes.
Meadows,
Yes.
Scozola,
Aye.
and Martinez Beltran.
Aye.
Thank you, the motion carries unanimous.
Okay, thank you.
We're gonna
So
have a
now we're
robust
through that.
discussion.
Bring
So
your
we'll see
pillows
this.
and
Absolutely.
PJs.
Yes, we'll see this come to the board.
The next item.
Let's bring it in. We've still got to get through some items, so let's just bring it in. We will see this conversation come back to the board and people, we can have a nice robust discussion there. But we do have to get on to some other items, so.
And we have a consultant online that's been.
Yes, so
Very
thank you so
patient
much. So we're
consultant.
gonna move now to number 5, to provide feedback on internal design of Silicon Valley Clean Energy Board of Directors Chamber.
Okay, and we'll try to get through this fairly
Thank you for your
quickly,
patience.
because we have one other item after this, but I'm gonna start it off, we've made a lot of progress in the design of our new office headquarters. We've learned a lot about the challenges of owning a building. And when you talk about things coming over budget, I now understand what that really means. And no control over a timeline, I now understand what that means. So,
You're
but
having a
that's it.
lot of growth.
Yes, one of the things that we really have advanced is we've gotten to a really good place on how we're going to utilize the office space for staff upstairs. And as you recall, we agreed to do it in phases. So phase 1 being the office space and the board chambers and what we call the board area. And then phase 2 was going to be that extra space that we had. How can we use this to best engage with our community? So today we're only focusing on a portion of phase 1, which is the board chambers. When we had a workshop, you all gave us a little bit of feedback about what your preferences were. And so today we're hoping to just maybe narrow in on that feedback a little bit on the board chambers and the space that the board will utilize, which goes a little bit beyond the board chambers as well. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Zoe and her team to take this over.
Great. All right, I'm gonna jump right in. So this is just an overview of our beautiful future home. And again, we really want to hear your input. This is gonna be kind of the place for conversation and discussion, so get your input. Next slide.
Oh, yeah.
Just to recap, so we are working on this balance between moving fast and also getting as much input as we can along the way. And then taking that input to steer direction and gather more facts such as engineering issues, budget issues, and all sorts of those things so that staff can then make decisions that are informed by facts and your input. So y'all probably hopefully recall, we had this staff session and a stakeholder and board session. And we were then, after that, selected Sarah as our architecture firm. And we have Shweta here, who's our lead for that project. We feel very lucky. We've done a number of projects in Sunnyvale, so very familiar with the city department staff, and also experts in building and community design and sustainability. So as Monica mentioned, we have finalized the overall floor plan and the location and size of the board chamber. So you'll see a rough outline of that momentarily. Okay, next slide. So this is a high level summary, but I think were some of the key takeaways. If I missed anything, it was inadvertent, but on the specifically about the board chamber, when we heard a lot about the importance of this inviting community participation, right? We wanted people to feel welcome to come in and give their input. We also heard that all of the public spaces, the board chamber and kind of even the entryway should be fun and engaging and reflect SVCE's mission, kind of spontaneous learning engagement environments. And we also heard the chamber should be flexible and able to be used for a variety of events. So you'll see kind of how we're thinking about that right now. And I think we also heard that there's a preference for a fixed dais. And so that's one of the key things that Shweta will go through, kind of the options for the fixed versus flexible space and your input on how to balance those two objectives. Okay, and with that, I am going to hand it over to you, Shweta.
Thanks, Zoe. Are you all able to hear me well? Great. Hi, my name is Shweta Mhatre, and I'm with Sarah Architects and really excited to be, working closely with Zoe, Monica, and team on, the office as well as the board chamber. So, deep diving into the board chamber, what we did is just looked at high level on, what's the spectrum that you could have at the board chamber. So on the left-hand side where it says furniture, one option is you have a completely flexible event space where everything is loose furniture, such that you can quickly repurpose it for any other event type that you want to include there. And on the right-hand side is a version where you have a dais and then you have fixed furniture at the head, basically on the dais, So that's a very formal board setting that you would see in cities, around the Bay. What we'll do next is we'll look at 3 versions of this spectrum, and I'll walk you through each of these 3 versions. So on that first slide, following this, is the completely movable piece. Before I go into the movable piece, I just want to give you a layout specification. On the bottom right-hand side, you'd see a key plan. That plan is the entirety of floor 1 of the SVCE office space. And what we are focused on is just the left-hand side, which is the orange box, which includes the board chamber and all of the associated functions of the board chamber, right? So in that enlarged plan, you'll see 2 arrows, the top and bottom, that show you the entrances coming from the street side, sidewalk side, and on top is coming from the parking lot side. That entire lobby reception area essentially is going to be a community space, a space that's going to be focused on educating the community about SVCE, about the various cities that are part of SVCE, the 13 communities that contribute to it. And then on the left-hand side of that lobby space is the board chamber. Configuration-wise, the board chamber is broken down into 2 spaces. The top portion, which has the more formal layout, is your more traditional board chamber. And then behind a set of operable walls of some sort or doors of some sort that are shown in orange, on the bottom half, you see something that's called a flex event space. So essentially the board chamber can grow as big as you want, once you include the flex chamber in it, or you can kind of close it off for a setting that serves around 35 to 45 people on the top itself. Along with this board chamber on the plan north, you'll see some support functions, which, a couple of conference rooms up there, technology, storage for chairs, etc., and a small meeting room, should anybody want to take a meeting, as a breakaway. So this overall architecture stays constant in all 3 layouts. What changes is in the insides of the space, right? So in this first one, we are using flexible furniture in both the board chamber as well as the flex event space. So these are long 6-foot-long tables, and then chairs which are stackable, which you could organize in any fashion for a formal board meeting or for any other event space. On the bottom, there are some examples that show what this might start to look like, right? So you'll still have a finished floor, some nice acoustics on the walls, something on the ceiling, but everything in between has the ability to flex and move out. We'd have some monitors on the wall behind the board chambers, and we could, that's further discussion on, is it just one large monitor, or is it a video wall like that's shown on the bottom right-hand side picture on the extreme right? So that's one layout with all movable. In the next one, we go to a version of the same layout, still movable furniture, but what we start doing is adding a dais, right? So the dais is what we are showing there in orange. Currently, we are showing the dais is raised 12 inches from the floor. what this allows is, better sight lines to people in the audience. It also gives that, it starts to differentiate between the presenter and the attendee in the room as well. But we have kept the furniture on the dais. It continues to be flexible. What does it allow? It allows you to use the dais again for a variety of different seating types. So it could be a fireplace conversation. It could be a TED Talk style kind of a conversation. It, doesn't limit how you use the space and how the speakers kind of address the audience. So you'd see some photos again in that ribbon at the bottom, starting to show that. One thing to know is the moment you elevate your floor, you will always, need an accessible access to that dais, which would mean some form of sloped walkways or a ramp situation along with steps to go up. So, this comes with some additional layer of both commitment to having a dais as well as, an additional layer of cost because you're constructing the dais and then ensuring that it is equitable and accessible to all. The rest of the layouts in the boat chamber and the flex event continue to be constant, and again, they're flex because it's all movable furniture. And that last one option that we have here, the boat chamber and again, the flex event space, the audience continues to be on flex chairs, but the dais starts to get a little more formal. So in this case, we have a head table that's millwork, that's built in, that starts to look both, elegant and formal at the same time. And then you have a board that kind of sits around this, like semicircular table of sorts on a raised dais. So this is what we are used to, for most cities as far as boat chambers go, where it's dedicated for this activity of, the audience sitting in and listening, and then the ability for a speaker to come and, talk to at the dais from the audience. That ability is in all three, but the fixed dais is what this one kind of lends itself to. Again, because of the dais, you'd need to have that same ramping situation and steps going up. So if we compare all of these three options on the next slide, there's some trade-offs, right? They're all workable options. The options with the fixed dais have, the least flexibility, and the highest cost. So in a matrix, if we look at this as the first option, the fixed dais with the stage, you get that perfect view of everybody in the audience. You get that formality of the boat chamber, but you start losing some of the flexibility of the space, and the budget, would be slightly higher than the rest of them. If you have a stage, but with furniture only, you continue to get that clear view of the public, and you have, your impacts on the flexible events and budget are not as much. You can still make it work for a variety of situations. And then the last one, all furniture, really keeps it, as flexible, as open to whatever scenarios that you kind of dream up in that space. It's also very budget friendly. On that next slide here, we had a few questions, but I'm going to stop before this and actually go back and see if there are any questions on the layouts itself before we, jump into questions that we had for the room.
Okay, thank you, Shweta.
Yeah.
I have some questions and then we'll take some questions from the directors as well. You talked about with the modular dais. Could you go back to the modular dais? I did see you, Tina, but I'm gonna ask her some questions and then I'll come back. That's okay.
You are the chair, your choice.
Okay, so on the modular dais,
Which
I'm
is the next
interested
one, right? Yeah.
I'm interested to know between that and the fixed, is there, well, I'm saying modular because that's what I'm thinking. I'm wondering, you have the fixed dais and then you have all furniture dais.
So the dais in both
The stage.
option 2 and 3 are the same. They are fixed. What is different is the furniture that sits on top of it. So
Okay,
on this option, it's just loose tables and loose chairs. You can configure it however you want, right? Like shown in the little vignettes and the pictures at the bottom.
Yes.
On the next option, your head table is fixed. It's millwork, it's done for these formal boardroom settings.
Okay, so my question is,
Yeah.
are we able to do modular in this option where it's fixed? Would it be able to be modular where you could move maybe if it's modular in 3 pieces, that, you know, I see that you have kind of this horseshoe. Is there any way to do that? So that you still have some formality to it, but you still have some flexibility to it?
Isn't that the middle option?
No, the middle option, it looks like you have the stage, right? But you don't have, my understanding is that you have a table and chairs. Or is it a dais, a modular dais?
You're mixing up
Yeah,
dais
but-
and table and chairs. So those 2
On the-
options, there's a raised dais.
There's
and
call that
either
the
a
Can you
stage.
go back to where you have all
The
3?
nomenclature is not clear for.
Yeah, can you go back to the 3 listings? Where you list all 3? Okay, fixed dais on stage. So I'm trying to see, and then you say stage with furniture. So when you say stage with furniture, I'm trying to understand, is that a table? Or is that actually a dais?
A stage and a dais are the same thing. So, you know, you can use one versus
Okay,
the
so
other.
with the millwork, a
Uh-huh,
fixed dais on stage, you have the stage and then you have the millwork dais.
correct. The millwork,
Stage,
the millwork is fixed to the dais.
okay,
On the second one, there's loose furniture on the dais.
so that's what I'm trying to understand. Is there any way to do something fixed that it still looks like a dais with the millwork, but maybe it's in 3 sections, so you could still have that formality, but it would also be able to be modular? That's my question.
I think the question is, does it have to be just basic chairs and tables or can
Right.
it be something a little fancier? And
Correct.
I think the answer is it can be a little fancier. It doesn't
It
have.
can
to
be-
look like that.
Agree. Yes, it can be fancier, you know. On that option, then it's a matter of when you know, break down that thing, where do you store it? Because the amount of storage you need to keep something that's, you know, that's millwork on a stage, and then you break it down. Say your stage, the whole thing breaks down into 3 pieces. Where do you store it? While
Okay.
with loose furniture, you know, you can stack it on top of each other, and it just is easy to compress and store away.
Right, but you'd still have to store that, so I'm just saying, I think you would only be, it should always be there unless you have an event. If you had some kind of event where you didn't need a dais, then maybe we would be able to move that dais itself. So that's what I'm wondering, if we would have any flexibility with that.
I think one example of that getting close to that actually is on the first slide, movable furniture. Might be a little hard to see, but that first one where it shows the black tables there, that's kind of an example. It might be hard to see on that screen, but not exactly what you're talking about, but furniture that has a more formal feeling than super.
Something that has what you call like a modesty panel at the bottom, like reception desks have, where you don't see people's legs. So I know what you're getting at. It doesn't literally have to be like a plastic table where you could see people's legs from there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just looking for something that looks a little more formal, but that could also move so that we could, if people wanted to do an event space, which takes me to my other question is, you know, how many people does this accommodate when you have the board chamber and the flex event combined? You said there was about 40 with just the board chamber. What does that provide altogether if you open that whole space up?
Sure. So on the dais or on the board are 13 seats. And then within the board chamber, if you do not have the dais, you have around 49 seats. With the dais, you go down to around 35 seats. And then the flex event space holds up to, say, another 35 for for all the 3 options, right? So you're talking anywhere between like 70 to 85 total.
Okay, great. Okay, and I'm just looking to see, we had lots of ideas when we met, but, performances, maybe school performances, maybe some type of a conference, things like that. And that's why I'm so interested in, I guess, the more flexible option that you have, but still providing some formality that says this is the home for our board. Okay, I have Director Walia and Director Klein. Director Scosolo will follow. Director Walia.
Thank you. Shweta, thank you so much for that. And my first comment, which I need to make before I ask you the question is, thank you for moving the board chambers to the left-hand side as we're looking at the floor plan. Because initially, the suggestion was in the bottom right corner. And what I had brought up was just so you know, I'm a trained architect. And my background is in commercial architecture, not residential. So I was concerned about the rigid size there of that room and the lack of flexibility, because on the one side we have the staircase and the other side the restrooms, and do you include them or outside and all of that. So I was thrilled beyond words when I saw this, that you have so much going on the left-hand side. So my first question is, so we have 28,000 square feet total, which is 14,000 on the first floor. So is this visually to me, it looks about 60% or so, all of this. But really, I'm looking at the size of, I can't read the dimensions there. There's a fixed wall just above where you're showing the furniture for the board chamber. So for just that space, what you're calling board chamber at the flex event, can you give me the dimensions and the area for that, please?
Sure, it's around 2,800 square feet. So, it's like 70 square feet by 40 square feet.
Okay. No, I'm talking only the flex event space. Flex event plus board chamber.
Correct, that's 70 feet long and around 40 feet wide.
Oh, I see. The number, you said 2,800. Sorry,
Correct.
my brain was still on 28,000 for the whole thing.
No, 2,800 square feet.
Sorry, I get it.
Yeah.
I was a little slow to absorb that. So how much would you keep if you could go to the fixed option with the dais, the stage, 12 inches built up? What is the depth there of that stage that you are considering?
The stage that we've currently drawn is around 15 feet deep.
Okay, 15. So you will still have 55 feet by 40 feet, which is flexible space.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, because that is a decent size, and that is going to be much larger than even the large conference room at the top, because I'm seeing medium large. Okay, so this is adding a variety of spaces here. Is that correct?
That is correct, yeah.
What was the thought process, how you created the sizes there? And the other question, and keep it very high level, please. The other question I have is, if you were to provide the fixed stage, one of these configurations, how much would it add in percentage terms of the total project scope budget in terms of dollars? And I mean, is it a drop in the bucket or is it a lot? I have some ideas, but I just want you to help us see that. And yeah, I think that's it. Those are my two questions.
Okay, so let's talk about the room sizes per se, right? So we understood from our SVCE partners that we're looking at a formal situation for a board chamber, but there are also times when the executive team meets, you don't need a whole big room for it, but you need a largish conference room. We also understand that everybody in the board are busy individuals. There might be times when people have to break out and take a phone call or be in another meeting simultaneously. So what we did is provide what we call an executive suite of sorts, which includes both the board chamber and a couple of meeting rooms or conference rooms, along with a small huddle or a phone room, which allows people to do all of these activities simultaneously, all on the lower floor, without having to go into the office space upstairs. Because the office space does have some of these conference rooms and phone rooms, but we wanted this to be more focused for the board. So that's how we broke down the spaces. The large conference room, has close to, I want to say can seat 16 to 20 people in that room. So it is much bigger than the one that you guys are in right now, for example, as a starting point, right? So if you choose to meet in this format of a meeting style, it allows you to do that. It has daylight and a large window looking out. So it's a great space to be in. So is the median conference room. They both have like access to daylight. The board chamber has, windows both on the street side and on the parking lot side. And even after you divide it into like the board chamber or the flex event, should you want to do that, the rooms are still sizable, for like the 35 to 40 people crowd on both sides, right? So that's how we kind of worked around the sizing component of it. Your second question was
Budget, if you add the
budget.
stage.
Yes,
Yeah.
so we are very initially looking together with SVCE on pricing. And what is interesting is that this is a large space, and the way the space is working out is that we need walls, a lot of walls, right? So very quickly, a lot of the existing budget is just going to be taken by walls that are required to make the program work, right? So the height on the lower floor is significantly tall as well. So it's a lot of gyp that we're using. With that said, then coming to the dais, constructing the dais, as I said, which requires stairs and which requires a sloped walkway, all of that together might not be a drop in the ocean. It might be something to consider, and one can deep dive and look at the pros and cons of why the dais. And I think that is some of our questions, follow-up questions, like why the dais? What are we trying to solve for? Because then we can help you all better to kind of refine that. Yeah.
Sure, that's very helpful. And just I just want to draw attention. So there is a column in the middle of this, just above
Correct.
the flex event.
Yeah.
So in case the whole thing was to be made into one room, the seating will be on either side of that in the flex event space.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It is a fairly, slim column. We've sometimes have to work with like chunky columns in the middle of the room, but it's not that. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think you have done a great job in presenting different options here. Appreciate that very much.
Anyone else? Larry?
Sure. So thank you for the presentation. From our city hall, we actually went through multiple stages here because we were initially, first we were on level with no raised dais and flexible space. We went from, if you go back to the second or third page, the board chamber head table studies, whatever page that was.
Oh, that's, which one? I think before that was.
That one, okay, yeah. So we went from basically the second option to the fifth option, fixed curved dais. And definitely raised to me was very positive. Flexibility, definitely after we've been in that fixed space now, it's like the angle and all this other stuff, decisions that were made until you actually sit in the space, sometimes you don't realize it. So for me, the fourth option of movable training tables, having some, as long as your legs are covered and all that, we can, the flexibility of having that raised stage is a big issue. So I do think that, to me, I lean towards that fourth option, just as a general feedback. I do think that it has positive things. From an overall space and going back to the map, where is closed session?
So that would be that large conference room. That's why we purposely added that.
Okay.
We added it there because we also needed another large conference room for staff. And we ran out of, believe it or not, we ran out of space upstairs. So we're like, we can walk downstairs when we're all in here and use that conference room. But that was the intent, is that would be the closed chambers.
So my biggest thing there is to make sure that there's some sort of blind system, even though that's,
Yes, for sure.
north and all that, so closed.
Yeah.
Being able to close that off from a privacy standpoint is a secondary thing. And then lastly, I know that we're still looking at kind of room layout, but what's envisioned for displays for this? Because as you're sitting in the audience, it's one thing we can figure out what you're sitting on the dais and on the tables for, but how the audience sees either displays becomes a big deal. We designed our building before there was the hybrid concept of COVID, and if we had to do it over again, we'd do it very much differently. But that's a sort of thing.
Interesting, yeah. When do we talk about the layout of the AV systems for the chambers? Is that something that comes later in our process?
I think a couple of things. So if we go back to where the range of layouts is, yeah, this one, for example, we've been talking about how the board likes to sit in the boardroom as well, because there are different formats, right? We are helping the city of Concord on their board chamber, and they wanted like an all-inclusive style where the speaker feels part of the circle to kind of have a conversation with the board. So you'll see here we have, not all layouts allow that kind of a layout where it's almost circular. But what we've done is more, like a convex, concave kind of a shape, either, through straight tables or a round, curved linear table, kind of allowing to do that. So that I think that's the first one. How would the board like to sit? Do you like to see each other when you're at the board table, or is it fine to largely face the audience? What that would then determine how the displays behind would be. The simplest is to just have like two flanking walls with two monitors, large TV screens. But there are obviously many ways to kind of get your AV in, whether it's through a video wall system, whether it's through a central display system. We haven't started looking at all of those just yet, Zoe, but I think some of our conversations today will give us enough feedback to kind of go to the next step. There's also like logos, cities like logos right behind in the center, and then you have like monitors on two sides. If the room is large, sometimes you would need, secondary monitors down, say in the flex space beyond the sliding doors to kind of reinforce. So I think we need to look at all of that together, along with like, what do we want to include in phase one to kind of stay within our budget, and what might be, just ready items to kind of add later down the line. So I think we need to look at those things.
Okay, and it wasn't the decision to be made now. I just wanted to make sure that we're looking, because
Yeah.
that plays with the stage and the dais a lot, because exactly logos and everything else. The big thing is, how the board sits, where the lectern goes. There's a lot of other things beyond this that is critical, but I think, thank you for laying out the options here, and for me, the fourth option gives us the most flexibility for other usage, as well as, the hardest thing about that is the breaks that you'll have with that angle. But it is critical that our board members get to be able to see each other. So that curve needs to be, I think, looking at that flexibility is, you do need to look at those angles. It's difficult when there's 13 people, but it's making sure that whether or not the middle table is set back farther, just so that people can get line of sight with everyone else is critical. That's my 2 cents.
That's helpful. Good. Okay. Director.
Thank you. Yeah, so I actually have a question about the fixed dais. I fully agree 100% that if we have, regardless of if it's fixed or not, we absolutely need to see each other, make sure that there's line of sight. So you just simply do our little, simply this and you're next. But I'm thinking about fixed. I have a question when it comes to tech. We voice tech a lot about, like, we'd like to have really nice tech. We'd like to have screens, things of that nature. If it's unfixed, I worry about you're gonna have to, anytime we have a special event, all the tech has to also be removed at the same time. So I personally feel that fixed is much better just on the tech aspect alone, is that you'll have far less time breaking down. So I don't know, my question is about the tech, like how simple would it be? To me, it sounds like, as someone who does pop-ups all the time, let me tell you, you want to be as efficient as possible, but I see this as a potential problem. So I'm curious of your opinion on fixed versus having the ability to remove when it comes to tech.
Yeah, the lose definitely comes with the, make ready time before and then breakdown time after, which, which would mean somebody within SVCE staff should have the capability, or, the passion to do it, because there would be some time before and after with those events. I would ask the group to think about, how often does the board meet, or how often would you meet in a format that requires a formal board setting versus the other events that you might choose to have. And I think that would help you prioritize the fixed versus the loose component of it. Because if the board's meeting once every 3 months and you actually have more other events in the space, like at least 6 to 10 other events in the space within the 3 months period, it might not be as bad to kind of set it up, once every 3 months to like 4 times a year. So I think it's just about weighing the pros and cons and choosing for, what your priorities are.
Thank you. I also was curious about, let's see, sorry, one moment. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Cupertino City Hall, but
Yep.
they have enough of the stage space in front where we've had the fireside chats where you just simply put some more chairs up front. I'm wondering if this space has enough space for us to do something similar like that. If we end up going with a fixed dais, is there enough space on the dais for these kinds of special events where we don't have to necessarily move, the big epic table if we go that route?
We could look into that as an alternative option. What it means is like, more of that boat chamber space that currently has that fixed seating will start to shrink,
Right.
and then there would be a disproportionate amount of like, if you have a room, more than half of your room is now going to be dais, right? From a visual standpoint, if the doors are closed. When the doors are open, it's going to look fine, but otherwise the use case kind of starts to shift. And if it's again, like trying to outline what type of events and how many of them in a given year that you anticipate that would need that kind of a layout.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I was just curious about like, what's the driver behind the dais in the first place? Is it just like being able to see everybody in the audience?
And each other, for sure.
So, so I'm confused whether, are we asking questions or are we just giving our general feedback?
She had stopped in the middle of her
Yeah, I didn't
presentation.
give my feedback.
She wanted questions specifically on this. She's not done
Right,
with.
okay, so I don't have questions, I'm just waiting till we get to feedback then.
Okay,
Me too,
okay.
yes.
Great. So I have a question on this. This is perfect here. I'm wondering, are those doors on the side of the flex event space and the chamber, will those be like sliding doors that you can push open so that it's almost like it's one big room with the outside space?
Yeah, the doors that are shown in like a zigzag, and like a herringbone pattern in orange, those are the ones that would like slide and open on the 2 sides, which will allow both those rooms to be combined together in one big space with a
I'm
column.
talking about the ones that's on the side.
Vertical space.
Oh, those are, just double doors that allow you to go outside the room in the reception lobby space. They do not.
Thank you, thank you. I'm wondering if you could look or have looked at doing sliding so that that space could even be bigger. I'm thinking a huge anniversary for SVCE,
Yeah.
or maybe we host something for CCA, or maybe there's a youth summit where you have, you're gonna set that room up maybe differently, but you could also have more people because you say it's up to 85 people and we could easily probably get to over 85 people. But if we're able to have those, almost like those restaurants that you see, where the doors just open and that space is all intermixed, I think that would be a great.
I think we're trying, I think we did talk about that, having like, it's a balance between budget. Those
Yes,
are
I understand.
very expensive and require different kind of structural engineering when you have that. So,
But even if it's not something we can do now, is there anything that we could set ourselves up for maybe down the road improvements? We have a budget that we have to work with, but just so that we're thinking about that in our shell as we're doing that now, that was something that I just see could be a really big benefit. We're gonna be limited on our events. with
yeah, and then
updates.
the stairwell actually kind of blocks that off anyway. So there's not like a big open flow area because of the stairs. And then the bathrooms and the elevators block it off. So there's not like an opportunity to create one big space like that.
Okay, well, I would, see if there's any value in it. That's just the thing. And the other thing is, I would like to see if we could do some greenery. We talked about tech and stuff, but
Oh, yeah,
you say
we have-
there's windows in there and so.
Yeah, that's coming too. So there's
Okay.
they have a whole proposal on how to make this like a living, sustainable beautiful space that,
Okay,
but right now we're just talking about the dais, because we have to, and we didn't talk about next steps, but we're trying to get this out to bid real soon.
Oh,
And so
okay.
we need to finalize what we're gonna put in our RFP so that we can get the numbers,
yes,
because we're finding that
that's dictating.
that's dictating a lot of this,
Got
yes.
Okay, so please proceed, Shweta.
Yeah, I think these were just some of the questions as we were talking about, going back to that driver for the fixed dais. Sounds like that's important to be able to see the people in the audience. I also did hear you guys thinking about wanting to see each other while on the stage. So, something that allows a curve or, a formation that allows people to see each other. I think that's good to know as well. Preference for a fixed head table or movable furniture. I heard a couple of voices in the room.
Haven't given discussion yet though, so this is,
Yeah. All right, so this is, you're done with your presentation, I imagine.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. These are just questions for you guys to discuss internally and
Great.
let us know how we can help.
Okay, so let's come back to everybody here and see if there are any questions left that they want to ask. And then we can go into the feedback and comment after that. So any questions? Not, we're gonna move to public comment. Okay, so do we have any public comment?
No hands raised, Chair.
Okay, great. So no public comment. We'll come back. Now we can do all kinds of feedback. Director, our chair, Director Walia, Director Meadows.
I think the dais is important and it adds a certain element of, a slight amount of formality and also good visibility. And also when people are presenting to us, it's not just a discussion, they're making a presentation, it makes them think about it. And I think that's a good thing. Secondly, I'm in agreement with Director Klein in terms of the variable movable furniture up on the dais. I think it gives that flexibility. Director Scozola talked about anyway, like fireside chat, and I thought, well, when we have panel discussions, I think that's good to just clear that away. I think for the most part, we'll probably keep those tables there and probably not we won't need this giant space that much. So your tech concern about having it go in and out, I'm not sure it's there. We do meet monthly, Shweta, and so
Okay.
in terms of other use, that gives us another, I like the overall design, I'm really quite happy.
Oh, yes.
That's all.
Okay, thank you. Director Bond.
Thank you. So thank you for pointing out we meet monthly. My city council meets twice a month in an auditorium for decades. It's a civic auditorium in Saratoga, and they have plays and other events happening. So they constantly break down and set it for the events, the musicals or whatever they are doing plays, as well as the council. No issues. I spent 10 years on the planning commission. This is my 5th year on council, 15 years personal, twice a month at least there, no challenges. They deal with it. Having been in other council chambers, I firmly believe there is no choice but to have a raised dais, not as high as what we have because in Saratoga we have a stage. So that's way too high. It's like we are looking down, none of us like it. How the board interacts with everyone as well as feedback from the other side. Of course, if budget was not an issue, the drool-worthy building from Sunnyvale Chambers, we had the SVCE board meeting there 2 weeks ago, and it was just fabulous. We don't have that budget. So I agree with you, Larry, about the best option, given all the considerations, is a dais with movable training tables. It accounts for that once a month board meeting, as well as, so we're looking at 11 board meetings in the 12 months every year. And we are looking at options for panel discussions, other things, and I think also provides flexibility for staff to have other large groups if you want to start training or having nonprofits or whatever. This is what we can think of today. We are not even thinking of what's going to happen 2-5 years from now, which we are not even able to think about today. In terms of fixed furniture, that takes away the flexibility. In terms of your doors and things, there is no room there, as Monica pointed out. Trust me when I said very simply, my first comment before questions was, they've done a phenomenal job. I couldn't have done it better. That's my vote of confidence. Shweta, your team has done a great job. I would
Appreciate
not
that.
consider not having a dais, because that's the question I heard from
Yep.
the
Mhm.
And to Elliot's point of having the deeper dais, can you pull up that slide, please, with any one of those? Actually, ideally, yeah, that's the one. So Elliot, if you look at it, if, as Shweta was describing, you bring that stage further down, it's almost hitting midpoint.
Yeah, I see that, yeah.
And just see how much of that space in front of the column, because that column smack in the middle,
Oh, yeah, right.
it's a point of separation. So you can't move that wall. I mean, you can, but
No.
that's the perfect spot.
I see.
So I would not change anything in terms of the location, the sizes, and it's a great solution. Those are my high level thoughts, just for the dais and furniture. Thanks.
Director Meadows?
Okay, thank you for these very helpful options and illustrations. One thing that I've struggled with in this whole discussion is if you look at slide 10, where all the options are laid out in the grid, Shweta is referring to the dais, at least in the chart, as furniture essentially, and talking about the raised area as stage. So
Right.
this has been driving me
I'm
nuts.
sorry,
A little
this was
confusing.
my error.
Oh, okay.
Of confusion on the terminology, so I fully take responsibility for that.
Okay.
Not using the word.
Apologies, Shweta. All right, so this has been driving me nuts for half an hour now. And so I am going to speak
Okay.
and say, I'm going to refer to a stage, and then I'm gonna talk about furniture / dais.
Thank you.
That is, because it's been all over the place, driving me nuts. All right. So the obvious, I think there's a strong preference, and I certainly have a strong preference for a raised stage.
Okay.
And on that stage, I think for flexibility for SVCE, we have to have mobility, because I think you might want to host staff, as everyone has said. So clearly the option outlined as stage with furniture, the middle option is what I completely support, but dais has been used in too many ways incorrectly in this discussion. So stage with furniture, it's, although we only meet monthly, it's not gonna, just as the chair said, it's not gonna move around that much, because you don't need to disassemble it if you're not having any special events. So we definitely want it to look nice, and the raised stage is important to all of us, I think. So thank you for letting me vent. And that is my feedback. Seriously, people meant it as furniture
No, I
sometimes.
saw it.
Oh, did you see me going?
No, I didn't see that.
Anyway, okay, sorry.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, great. So I will say I love this, and I do, as I said from the beginning, I think the modular piece and having that ability to move things is really important. I do really like the stage. I'm very glad that we got this all down, because it's important not only for line of sight, but I think to give that formality as well, as I've said, so that you understand you're there and you're listening and you're really honed in. I also think that for other events, and I hope that we will use this for other events. I don't see the issue as well, because we do only meet once a month. I actually think it will probably be configured most of the time for other events rather than our board meetings. And that's the hope for me, for community events, or whatever it is, performances or conferences, panels, fireside chats, whatever it is that we're doing, I think that would be good. And that stage, if we do have the ability to move that furniture, could then actually be a stage for the performance, could be for, events, what have you. So I don't know if I'm just thinking what possibilities might be in the front. I've done lots of leasing, and so I think that's probably where this is coming from, you know, weddings, conferences, performance, all of that stuff, I think we should keep that all on the radar. So,
Yeah, I think that's part of phase two.
Yeah.
And, you know, with all of those types of possibilities comes a different level of commitment and a different level of staffing as well.
mhm.
And so we're not an event
Of course.
organization, so
Of
we don't
course.
know how to do that. But we do know that if we do offer it up for agencies or organizations outside
Mhm.
or people,
They will
that
have.
we have to have different insurance, we have to have staff to be there, we have to have janitorial, we have to have even maybe security. So those are things that we have not explored.
Yes.
Right now, our goal is to get through phase one, to get staff in there, to get a support chamber, and then we're going to have to explore what phase two looks like. With all of those things on the table
Yes, sounds good.
and all the costs that come with it.
Right, no, and I hear you. I just want us to also, you know that we don't know what we don't know, like you said earlier, so. But this is great, it's phenomenal. I really appreciate all the work that you've done, and I appreciate all the work that the staff has done. This is a big load, as Director Klein was telling us, you know, I think your input is very valuable, being that your organization just went through this, so really looking and appreciating the feedback that you provided. Okay,
One more question.
yes.
Just a quick comment, because it's linked. Larry pointed out something, and I'll forget, but just a little feedback. I completely agree about those little triangular spaces. Look at option 4, the gaps. I love them because that's where I can hide my multiple bags. But I also know that's where these movable tables end up moving and suddenly. So just keep in mind, a low-cost option, if ever it happens, once we figure out the angles, can we get those triangular little tables to fill the gaps?
Good idea.
Just think about that. Sorry, you can't get the architect out of my head.
Mhm.
Thank you for bringing that.
That's helpful.
That is.
It was bugging me as well, but just keep in mind.
And I have a couple more slides that we wanted to share on as far as the timeline.
Oh, yep, just the time, yep. timeline.
Okay,
And then this is not an action item. so
Yes.
this is-
yes. And I know we've taken more time, but these two pass, I mean, these are like critical to the operations of SVCE. So I didn't want to rush it and cram it through. So I'm sorry that we're over, but it's important.
I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you, and thanks for your feedback.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all, thank you all so much for all of this. We always get lots of discussions, very helpful, because we're moving quickly. So just this is high level overview of the timeline. I think the big takeaways is, again, we'll be coming back later for additional input on phase 2 and that kind of full picture considerations. We are finalizing the designs and the schematics for phase 1 quickly, begin applying for permits later this quarter, and then actually begin construction in Q1 of next year with the aim of moving in July 2026, if everything goes on time, as it always does in construction, so.
Always.
If it was up to me, we'd be there.
I know,
in
yeah.
January, but.
Oh, my God.
As we've already seen, new things learning today, so that's the overview of the timeline.
Okay, this is good. Can I just, when we put this here, I think it would be great, to help the conversation, because I'm sure we're gonna have a lot of.
We're not taking it to the board.
Oh, no.
We're not taking it to the.
Oh, we're not, okay, great. I was like, let's get some
Yeah.
real, right up front.
Yeah, we got the board's direction to you.
Okay, so
use the
you're just-
Executive committee as a
yes.
sounding board.
Okay, great. So moving on to number 6, thank you for all your work. on
We've
this.
actually asked, because we're running so late, if,
Table,
yeah, we can move it to another date.
please, that sounds
We have
great.
to officially change the agenda.
How
I
about,
just want to make sure we have Zoe's items next, and then we're yes.
Zoe, do you have another item?
yeah, 7, yeah.
Yeah.
What's 7?
It's the
Give us a
preview of
snapshot.
the decarb roadmap, which we could do in 5 minutes if you want to.
Okay. I have to go to the restroom.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Do we need to move,
I don't
do
know
we
what
need
the
to
next
vote
one is.
to move number 6 to, do we need to vote to table number 6 to a later meeting? We may.
Number 6 being somewhere else.
Integrated
Oh, you mean-
decarbonization
This
roadmap.
is just a preview,
PT.
I can really do it.
Like this.
I can Because we're bringing it to the board, so we wanted to preview it.
Are we
There's a
okay?
suggestion
Oh, go
to
ahead.
bring lunch here and take a 5-minute restroom break.
Yes.
That's kind of what I heard.
And then,
10-minute break.
Yes,
Go to the restroom, get your lunch and we'll
so
come
we
back.
eat and do this, then that way,
that sounds good.
yeah.
Is that okay with everyone? Because I know some places-
Absolutely.
Okay, all right.
Efficiency.
Yes, thank you. Preview. Zoe, take it away.
Okay. You weren't getting tired of hearing my voice
No,
this
we're not.
morning. I am here with Peter Masasich, who is the technical manager leading this project. Maren Wenzel, also on the line, is a key collaborator in this process. She is. Justin needed to step into another meeting, but he is also one of a key collaborator in this project. So this is meant as a preview. We do appreciate everybody staying through lunch because we're going to be bringing this to the board also as a preview. But this is a big strategic project that we're kicking off this year and we'll go over the next few months. We want to make sure that you're all aware of it. We may refer to it when you ask us other questions about how we, for example, measure progress towards our decarbonization goals. So I want to kind of give you right now an overview of the thinking and the goals and answer any high-level questions about process. And then we'll be coming back for an in-depth discussion at a few key points in the project. So these are the kind of key items here on the preview. What was the original decarbonization roadmap? Why are we doing this now? What will the benefits be of this? And general timeline. Okay. So back in 2018, SVCE published the decarbonization strategy and programs roadmap. I'm not sure if any of you were involved in the process, but it was there's a lot of board, stakeholder, community input. In that process, we established our community GHG reduction targets. So that slide that you often see with our targets and where we are now came from that process. And we are articulated an overarching strategic framework and identified our program areas. I think as somebody who has been parts of lots of different strategic processes, as I'm sure many of you have, what's really remarkable actually about that roadmap is that the overarching principles and framework remain true today. Like it still really guides us and set a really great foundation. And it's also the case that 2025, a lot has changed. So Peter picked out a few things here related to we're just focused, lots of things have changed in the world, but just related specifically to our work. EV adoption has tripled, really amazing. Electricity rates have also doubled, really a critical thing for us to take in times of our mission. Staff at SVCE has grown about 2.5 times. So this new strategy document will allow us to kind of take in this increased capacity that we have staff. Back in 2018, AI wasn't even a thing.
That's crazy.
I'll also say with another, just anecdotally, everyone seems to know what a heat pump is now. Oh, and tell people what I do, they know what I'm talking about. That was not the case in 2018. So a lot has changed. And so it's really time for an updated plan. And this will leverage our growth to kind of refine scenario planning, reflect changes in technologies, statewide compliance requirements, and SVCE as an organization. Where we talked about the original framework really set this overarching strategy. We'll be able to be more specific and nuanced to really ensure the best use of our investments to meet the challenges that are in front of us today. And then I think we're all very excited about number 4, which is really integrating the supply side decarbonization into the plan. So one of the things that Monica talks to us all at a staff level about is SVC 3.0 is really about this integration. And we're at a more sophisticated place as an organization and as market development to really think about the 2 sides of our business in one holistic way. And then number 5, create an updated set of holistic metrics so that we can track and report progress. and really have thorough discussions about different types of trade-offs. So some of this is repeating this, but just want to kind of visualize this, right? That first roadmap, we had this one simple line, created the strategic framework, really just even counting those emissions and saying where we're gonna get was a big deal. Emphasized that, hey, the core focus of our work should be on electrification of transportation and buildings, all of that continues to remain true. But now we can build off of that foundation to create a much more nuanced strategy. So the visuals here are just meant to be illustrative. They're from a tool that we're developing that is a GHG forecast, right? But we can do scenario analysis. What if we have fast, rapid uptake of electrification? Or what if things really slow down or the economy really changes? We can do, instead of an overarching strategy, think about customer and technology specific changes and include cost effectiveness reporting. So again, the images that you're seeing are meant to be illustrative, just so you know, to give you a sense of the kind of different level of nuance that we're thinking. And then what will we get out of this at the end? Updated goals and targets, or reestablishment of those goals and targets that are relevant. Refined scenarios. Also really important, we'll be building off of the last 7 years of learning, right? So we now, back in 2018, there wasn't a programs full team. I don't even know how much of a programs full budget there was there. We now have a very sophisticated team. We have a data analytics team, and we have learned a lot. So we can incorporate and build off of all of those learnings. And create, of course, this overarching strategic framework that tells the story of how we get from today to our 2045 goals. And again, prioritize recommendations and reporting metrics. You all, the executive committee and the full board, play a key role in steering this effort towards success. Again, this is meant as a preview today, hopefully stimulating questions, but we'll really be getting into the meat of the conversation over the next few months. So your guidance in providing overall information on how to steer the objectives, and then approving the long-term evaluation framework and that final roadmap document. This is kind of a draft schedule of what we imagine this to look like. I think the key thing here is that we're thinking it will be next year that we'll have the final documents present. And then in December, we'll really have a deep dive study session. That's meant to be a preview.
Thank you, that was quick, okay. Does anybody have any questions? All right. Then, oh, I'm sorry.
It was really slow because I'm chewing. But I do have a question, and excuse that my mouth is so one of the slides you talked about various scenarios, trying to plan for them. How does that scenario planning tie in with Amrit's scenario stuff that he uses to determine budget and hedging and all that stuff? And there's a word, it's not risk management, that's the word. So Amrit does a lot of modeling and scenarios. And so what's the overlap between what you look at and what Amrit looks at?
Yeah, so what Armor's really looking at is what the impact is to our reserves and
Financially,
yes, right?
Yeah.
But I think one of the key things that we've learned through that scenario analysis is that there's a lot of uncertainty in all the things that we do. One of our biggest uncertainties right now that we're facing is just understanding what our load is really going to be. And our load drives a lot of our ability to meet our greenhouse gas reduction targets. And so we'll incorporate some of what, the good thing is that because we've created kind of this centralized data analytics team and centralized a lot of the stuff that we do, we have the ability to share our learnings across the organization. And so, Marin works closely with building up scenarios with Amrit, as does Chris on the supply side. And now we'll also be looking at different ways that load and our customer, even if it's just the load that we have now, how they'll utilize load and how we can actually move the needle in terms of reducing greenhouse gases in our communities. And so a lot of that has to do with just how quickly we can electrify, right? And so again, we've learned a lot between since 2018 and now. Another big scenario is what happens on a kind of a macro policy level. If the area air district adopts their rules, for example, that puts us on a different trajectory on heat pump water heater adoption. So we'll look at all of that. But it'll help feed into some of the analysis that maybe Armit will do as opposed to the other way around.
Okay,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm trying to make sure that there's communication. You don't want one set of assumptions here and a different set there.
Right. But yes, we've been really working hard on making sure that we all have one source of truth, whether it's financial load or greenhouse gas emissions.
And this roadmap, you're looking to just update it with the suggestions, so that's when we'll take the deep dive and take all the questions, kind of repackage.
Yeah, I would say that it is an update and a refinement of that roadmap, yep, and so we will come back to the board for that input. And then when that final document is complete, we'll come for you all to adopt that, which will kind of set strategic direction in this area going forward.
Okay, and what's that timeline?
Next spring is is when we aim to have something that's close to final for adoption or for additional input.
In December, you're hoping to hold a board study session.
That's right.
Yeah, so we'll design that study session maybe with a little bit of input from the executive committee as well.
Okay,
Very much look forward to that, yeah.
thank you. Did you have an
It was gonna be related to that.
Okay, so I don't see any other comments. Do we need to take public comment on this?
Yes, please. No hands raised.
Okay, great. We'll close public comment, move back. I didn't see any pressing comments, so we'll thank you for that presentation. And we'll move to number 7, program snapshot, residential rebates and assistance programs. And again, this is an informational item as well.
Because of the timing, we had to drop that item. Staff had another commitment,
Okay,
so
that's fine. So
we'll
we
move it to
can,
next month if that's okay.
great. We'll see that next month then. With that, any other remarks? Either the committee? Yes.
I'd like to make a remark with adjournment if,
Okay,
I'm just picking up something here.
that would be now if you want to make a comment.
Okay, I am really sorry to share with you the sad news that Angway passed away peacefully last night.
No.
I just picked up that I had to check something else because of the timing. And I'm really sorry about that. So my suggestion is that we adjourn the meeting in her honor. That's why I was saying, I want to make a comment with adjourn.
Okay, I don't think there's anything to say. So love to adjourn in honor of Hungary. Thank you for that.